All right, we are live. Thanks everyone for joining us on YouTube.
Live and alive.
The live stream. How many more times should we say live today? Even though a lot of people might be watching the YouTube not live.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I've kind of excluded all these people.
Recorded.
Hello to you also.
No one ever calls it like a dead stream. Like that hasn't caught on as being like a live stream you watch when it's no longer live.
Is that an actual term?
No, I'm saying it. I'm surprised it's not.
I mean, it's a little dark. It sounds dark.
Maybe that's why. I'm sure someone has tried. I can't be the first.
Okay, let me Google it.
We're also not going to try.
There's a movie called Deadstream starring Joseph Winter. I don't know this person.
Is it about a live stream that goes wrong?
It's a drama horror. Oh, I guess it's 2022. It's a new movie.
Oh.
Homework for next week's episode. We're all going to watch Deadstream. Us and everyone in the chat. And then we'll have a quick book review, movie chat. Okay, and we'll discuss what we liked and didn't like.
It sounds like something everyone is definitely going to do.
Spin-off podcast. It would be less work to watch the movie and then just chat about it versus paying attention to all these hockey games.
Yeah. Follow 7 days of hockey trends or watch a 90-minute movie. There's no such thing as a 90-minute movie anymore.
Matt's on it. We're good.
Okay, Matt, you make a book report, but for a movie.
All right, let's do this. I'm going to do this now. Okay, I'm just actually rearranging one window, but thanks everyone for watching. I think we're going to have a fun, interesting show today. Hopefully there's a lot of things to talk about, right? It's like a new season. I want to talk about every team, but obviously we'll fit in. But if you have a player that you want us to talk about, throw it in the chat here. We can try to get to it.
This is your first of the this is your first of the season.
Yeah, let's do it. What? We did Patreon. Okay. Yes! Welcome everybody to the episode of Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys, one of whom I feel like had a lot of good ideas of moves I could have made this week to be successful in fantasy. And I wish I did them. I'm your host, Neil Dubrovsky, and with me to break down all the things I should have done and maybe what we all should be doing moving forward to get on track here and win some matchups. It's the fantasy hockey robot, the poop-op prognostication, the IPP MVP himself, Brian Com.
Elon, just check your sound. It seemed to have gotten worse once we started recording.
I think it's just because I'm yelling into Zoom.
Okay.
My track.
The fidelity dropped.
Okay, one sec. Let me just check something quickly because sometimes the
Zoom ate my yes last week.
Yeah, I saw that. But what the F? My microphone.
Did it switch?
It didn't switch. It changed the setting. My microphone app changed the. Oh no.
Right.
My mic gain now is 22.5. Oh, it just changed again. Oh, bro, I know what this is. This happened on the last show too.
It's
a setting on Zoom.
Are you using bro with other people, or is this just to me? This is used on the Patreon cast. It's okay. I'm just curious.
I know.
I'm sorry to make it. I don't mean to make a big deal of it. Because
I'm on a new computer. One thing at a time. We'll get to the bro. I am on a new computer for these last few shows, and Zoom has this setting automatically adjust microphone volume, which was an advice I gave to Ben and Lewis back in the day.
Yeah.
And then I forgot about it myself.
To uncheck it?
Yeah, to uncheck it.
Yeah, well, not only did it adjust your volume, though, it actually sounded worse.
Well, yeah, it's I have my good settings.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to go and
your computer's getting the good stuff.
Okay, I'm going to reset my settings. So now I should be on my good settings. How's this?
This is good. I mean, It was good before. It just got worse.
Yeah, Zoom was trying to compensate for my yelling. That's too bad. Look at that. We just lost 5 minutes.
All right. And probably 5 listeners.
Okay. Well, I don't care about them.
That is not true.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. Are you going to start over?
I guess so. It was messing with the audio.
Probably. Not on your local audio. I
guess.
It
did. It was changing my local audio. It was changing just the microphone settings.
Let's do it.
Okay. Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world. Oh no, now it's clipping. Oh my God. Sorry, my audio.
It's okay. We're gonna work through this together.
Actually, it sounded okay. All right, Brian, can we just restart the recording? Sorry,
Yeah,
everybody.
let me
This is,
find
you're getting the behind the scenes here. One day we'll
This
get
is,
this show actually started.
I mean, it's not meant to be a live stream. So which is a reminder, if you're listening now on YouTube, we don't get credit for your listen with our network, and we like to please our network. So if you could also subscribe to us on a podcasting service that auto downloads the episode every week, or at least just hit play and let it run through this week, we'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So let's start the recording.
Yeah.
1 second. Let me make sure I have everything good. Your recording device. Sure. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Record.
Recording. James Corden.
James Corden. Let's say that from now on.
It's terrible.
Okay. Yay! Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by a guy, well, two guys, one of whom had some really good ideas of moves to make for his fantasy teams this week. Didn't do any of them, lost a bunch of matchups, but that's okay because I've got my friend here to help me get on track and discuss everything I did wrong and then everything we can all do to improve for our matchups moving forward. It's my very good friend, the fantasy hockey robot, the IPP MVP himself, Brian.
Hello, Elon. Hello, everyone. Welcome, Elon, to your NHL real regular season debut. We had the little fake out after those games overseas in Czechia with San Jose and Nashville. Then I had an awesome time with Steve Laidlaw last week, but I'm very happy to have you back in the co-host chair for this episode, where we are going to rip through as much as we can for what's happened in fantasy hockey over the last week. And I'm with you, Elon. Like in fantasy hockey, step 1 is identifying the trend. Step 2 is actually doing the right thing about it. And I definitely lost my matchup this week because of the decisions I chose, the things I chose not to do for whatever reason. It was just wrong decision after wrong decision. And it happens. Sometimes it's a game of margins and coin flips. And I am ready to talk through it with you and our listeners to try and figure out how to not do it again next week.
Okay, like here's the thing. To me, it's like I'm in some very challenging leagues. Tier 1 of the Cacuffle is very hard. And so sometimes I'm like sitting there like, maybe I should add Eric Comrie. Like he just had a really good game. Like Buffalo's looking pretty good. Craig Anderson's old. Yeah, I could use that. Okay, I'm just gonna go have a quick nap because I don't know if people are aware. I just had a kid, right? So I've been trying to like not like die. So I've, we were like taking care of her, and then like when I get a chance, I go have it. So I'm gonna have a quick nap. Then when I get up, and then I wake up and it's like Eric Comrie's been at it. And then I was like, oh, Mackenzie Blackwood. Oh yeah, because I need a goalie, right? Because Philip Grubauer turned out to be terrible. So this is like sort of I've had all these ideas of like goalies I can. Oh yeah, I think he's taking over the net in New Jersey. This would be, and then okay, let me just eat because I haven't eaten in a while. Then I'm gonna go and like look into this Mackenzie Blackwood idea. Boom, take it. And it's like, I did add Shaden Pinto, Brian, though, yesterday in the middle of the Sens game after I saw that Josh Norris got injured. So we'll see how that works out. And actually, that'll be the first topic. Before we get to that and a lot of other things, let's mention quickly, Keeping Karlsson, very proudly presented by DobberHockey.com. It's your source for everything fantasy all the time, right? There's the articles going up that are all very useful and written by really smart people. The Daily Ramblers, just to give you that daily dose of the latest and greatest going on, injuries, outjuries, hot streaks, cold streaks, all the stuff that we're talking about on this show, plus the tools of Frozen Tools. Can't be beat. I use them to prep the show. So DobberHockey.com. But okay, with that, Brian, let's get into this here. Let's get to the bread and butter of Keeping Karlsson. Now that we're past the off season, it's the typical stuff. We're going to start with some injuries to start the show. Then we'll meander around the league, do what we can. And yeah, so after starting the season with a couple of losses, the Ottawa Senators offense exploded this past week. 7, 5, and 6 goals versus Washington, Boston, and Arizona. Kachuk and Batherson each have 8 points in 5 games now. DeBrincat, Stützle, Giroux, all with 5 or 4. So that's 5 of the big top 6 that everyone was excited for going into the season, all hitting, except Josh Norris, who has been really quiet, right? He only cashed in with 1 goal and 1 assist in those first 5 games. It turned out all the production that we were expecting from Norris was coming from the third line center, Shane Pinto, who has scored in 4 games in a row now. So when I was thinking about prepping the show, tomorrow or yesterday morning, when I was thinking of prepping the show, yesterday morning, I was going to ask you, like, what's wrong with Josh Norris? Like, why hasn't he picked things up? Is there a problem now that maybe he's not the only good center there? There's Stützle also, and maybe the power play, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, then in that game, Norris got injured. He left with what appeared to be a wrist injury. There's an MRI scheduled. It might be nothing, right? We don't know. I don't think we've gotten an update yet. It could be a long-term thing. But in the meantime, now we've got this Shane Pinto character who was already doing really well, now is likely going to get bumped into that spot with Giroux and DeBrincat. So how fast should people be rushing to add Shane Pinto? Like, even if Norris wasn't injured, I'd be asking you this question, but especially now that Norris is potentially injured, is this like a must add? Everyone's pause the pod and go get him?
Kind of. I mean, a lot of this depends on whether you're going to run and pause the pod to add Shane Pinto. Depends on the outlook we get from Josh Norris. But if you want to go ahead and make a speculative ad and you have someone you can drop that you don't care that much about, I would go ahead and do that right now. If you're not familiar with Shane Pinto, soon to be 22 years old, he was the 32nd overall pick back in 2019. That's the year that Jack Hughes and Kaapo Kakko went 1-2. And interestingly enough, Arthur Kaliev came one pick after Shane Pinto, who had a successful 2 seasons at the University of North Dakota with Jake Sanderson and Jacob Bernard Docker, one already playing for the Sens and one in the Sens system, where Pinto was amongst team scoring leaders as an 18 and 19-year-old in college before turning pro, putting up 7 points in 12 games with the Sens to end the 2021 season. And then Pinto was supposed to be a full-time NHLer last year, but had a season-ending injury just 5 games into the year. But Pinto has been projected to be a top 9 capable player with top 6 upside. And obviously we're heartened by what we're seeing so far with 4 goals and 5 points in 5 games from Shane Pinto, who also straight up looks good on the ice. He seems to know what he's doing, looks confident for a rookie. Of course, the numbers are important here to keep in mind. He has 12 shots over 4 games. He scored on every third shot he's taken for a 33% shooting percentage. But I mean, who cares if he's the next in line for a raise up the depth chart, which he is. If Josh Norris is missing extended time, I think he'd be in a great spot. If he can step anywhere into the top 6, I think he can handle that role. And he could still be, he will still be on one of the split kind of power plays that the Sens are running. There's no other obvious challengers for Josh Norris's place in the top 6. So that's why I would say Shane Pinto is worth a speculative ad while we wait to hear on Norris, so long as it's not going to crush you if you hear that Josh Norris is going to be back playing the next game.
Right. But hey, like you said, even if Norris does come back, Pinto might still have some value, depending obviously how deep your league is. I guess with Josh Norris, if you have him in your league, you're maybe a little bit like not too upset about this. It's kind of like with the Grubauer injury, right? I was thinking like, should I drop Grubauer? Then he's sort of like, okay, good. I could just stash him and worry about it later. But Josh Norris, he wasn't really producing. Hopefully, he takes a little time. Maybe when he comes back, he'll be invigorated and ready to produce like everyone expected him to. So I'm sure the people who had Josh Norris aren't like too upset, especially if they could just grab Shane Pinto and hopefully just, keep on rolling or do even better. But anyway,
sorry. Yeah, I'm not panicking if you have Josh Norris. Unfortunately, he has not gotten in on any of the power play goals that have been scored while he's on the ice. And at even strength at 5-on-5, his line mates are shooting less than 6%. So, like these things will change. He's been on the ice for 3 power play goals. It stands to reason he should have gotten a point on 1 or 2 of those based on his career IPPs, points participation rates to date. So this could be a good moment to buy low on Josh Norris. If you can deal anybody who's like a 60-point player for an injured Josh Norris, I'd do that.
Oh yeah, here's a strategy for fantasy. A lot of people right now are looking, and we're going to talk about all these exciting potential free agents that you might want to add. You might be looking at your team saying, man, I don't even know who to drop. Maybe you could make a trade instead of just dropping someone good. Maybe make an offer to the Josh Norris manager and say, yeah, I'll give you this guy who, let's say you were thinking of dropping Blake Wheeler. I know, Brian, you recently added Blake Wheeler after he was dropped. Maybe like the person who dropped Wheeler instead could have this is obviously the timing didn't exactly work out here, but in theory, you know what I mean? Like I know Wheeler is good, but I just, I need to drop someone. I like everyone on my team, throw that trade offer. Then instead of dropping him, you get to stash someone in your IR and then you make the ad that you want to make. So something to consider if you want to make space, maybe make your trade offers for Josh Norris now. But okay, Brian, I guess a casualty of this Norris injury, Tyler Mott, I'll just mention his name. He's been playing with Pinto and he's put up 2 straight multi-point games to go along with his nice hit total. So in your deep bangers leagues, Mott has been good. Now he loses Pinto. I guess I don't know who's the next center that'll come up to play with him, but I'm sure he wasn't someone we were going to be especially excited about anyways, but he's a guy. And then one last thing on the Sens before we move on to our next injury, Thomas Chabot. Where's this guy been? Because like I said, the Sens have been scoring a ton of goals, including a bunch on the power play. And yet this guy, the number 1 power play quarterback, has just 2 assists in 5 games now. So is this a situation like with Norris, where you're saying, oh, just a low IPP, expect this to turn around soon? Or should the Chabot owners maybe start being very concerned that he's not going to be the 60-point guy we once thought he could be on this team?
So I wouldn't be so deeply concerned about Thomas Chabot. I guess it depends on what your expectations for him were. I mean, yes, his points participation is way down. Chabot has only gotten 1 point on the 7 goals scored while he's on the ice. So yeah, you could probably have had a couple more by now and looking very much in line to be on that 55, 60 point pace. Chabot has, also gotten in on one of the team's 4 power play goals that they've scored. He's been on the ice for half of those, 2 out of 4. He's gotten a point on 1. This is good. Like, this is honestly, aside from those low points participation rates, this is about what we expect from Thomas Chabot, right? So those will pop up. He'll be, I think, in 55-ish, hopefully 60-point territory. But for anyone expecting like a huge breakout offensive performance from Chabot, he's been in a position to do it already. Just because the top 6 is full now doesn't mean this is his first crack at it. And we've seen him be this 55-point player. He had a huge sophomore season where he was a 64-point pace player. But honestly, I think I would be more comfortable expecting him to finish just below 60 points than above it.
I mean, yeah, right now, I'm sure the Chabot managers are really hoping they're like, that's fine, man. He could be 55 points. Just to please don't be like a 40-point guy like he's looking like at the moment.
Yeah,
but yeah,
well,
it's early.
Regress that points participation, and he's right on track. It's not an issue. Great buy low window for anyone who is as concerned about Chabot as Elon is suggesting some people are.
Yeah, I'm not concerned. I guess that's the point of the show. I'm going to bring up some cold streaks, and the whole idea is you're going to tell us whether we should be concerned and drop the person, or like try to sell them, but while they still have some value, or whether it's a buy, right? So yes, it sounds like you're saying Chabot, don't worry about it. Another injury we don't really know the extent of, but it looks like it's not too serious. So I don't know, maybe we don't have to talk too long about it, but Jake Gensel took an elbow to the head from Brandon Lemieux in a game versus LA. So hopefully he's not out long. Amazing start to the year for Gensel, 5 points in 4 games. In his absence, Danton Heinen jumped to the top line with Crosby and Raquel versus Columbus, and Heinen went off a couple of goals, both assisted by Crosby, of course. So I'm going to give Crosby a lot of the credit there, but who cares, right? Danton Heinen really contributing in that spot, unlike Raquel, who actually had a quiet game versus Columbus there when Pittsburgh scored 6 goals. But yeah, like Pinto, Heinen was already off to a good start even when he was lower in the lineup. He had 4 points in 4 games before he got onto the top line. Gensel's top power play spot was taken by Ricard Raquel on Saturday. No points though for him. And I'm seeing that in practice recently, he was bumped off the top power play. If you go to gamedaytweets.com, you can look at the tweets of line combinations from beat writers, which is I think my favorite source. And it's Shams and I that are retweeting all of these tweets, and they get organized per team. And yeah, the Penguins had a new combination on the power play today. Josh Getzoff tweeted, Penn's top power play minus Gensel was going Petrie, joining Letang. So 2 defensemen, and then Crosby, Malkin, and Russ. So that's obviously not great for Ricard Raquel. So Brian, let's say you're in a shallower league. Gensel is hurt for now. Raquel's available. Heinen's available. You're making a short-term ad. Who should we be more excited about, if any? Or you could just tell me forget about Heinen, but I'd be a little bit concerned about what Raquel hasn't done lately and him getting bumped from that top power play, even though he wasn't supposed to be there in the first place.
Okay, let's talk for a moment about both of them. By the way, the latest we've heard as of recording time here is that Jake Gensel could play on the upcoming Penguins road trip. That's according to Taylor Haas on Twitter. But as far as Danton Heinen, this is going to turn into a Sidney Crosby appreciation moment. I will take anyone playing with Sidney Crosby right now, as we always have. Crosby is going wild so far this season. He is tied for second in the NHL scoring race, averaging 2 points per game, 3 goals, 7 assists, and 10 points in 5 games played, and also unleashing the shots on goal. 18 shots after 5 games. That's a rate we've never seen from Crosby over a full season before. So I'm curious to see if this is just like a temporary spike, or if it holds somehow. I wouldn't put it past Sidney Crosby to reinvent himself in some way. And in this, age 34 season, Pittsburgh is shooting 17% when Crosby's on the ice at 5-on-5, thanks to his 27% and Gensel's 18% 5-on-5 shooting percentages. So, obviously a little overproducing here, but it's still really exciting. And Heinen being on that line instead of Gensel downgrades the line, but Sid looks like a world beater at the moment. And as I mentioned, as we have through his career, I have interest in the guy who's playing with him. And right now, at least for a game or two, it might be Danton Heinen. And then Ricard Raquel, he's gotten a point on just one of the 9 5-on-5 goals he's been on the ice for. So you're going to hear, similar to what I said about Norris and Chabot, he should have been on more of the goals. And I think the reason he wasn't is not because he sucks or he's not involved. It's just not happening. And Raquel should be getting in on more goals because he's on the ice more often at 5-on-5 this season than he ever has been before in his career. He's taking 4 shots per game, which is like the peak Raquel we've been waiting to see since he started doing this way back in Anaheim. It's a bit risky, Elon, but I would consider buying low on Rickard Raquel if you have a chance to swing it at the right price. It's because he's doing so poorly, but he's in a great spot in the lineup. I don't know what the power play 1 situation is going to shake out as, but if you can send over someone who's maybe projected for about 55 points and take that chance that Raquel could regain that top power play spot, crush it with regular points participation on Crosby's wing, I think you could be really happy with the season he's about to have. So Elon, if I was choosing between Raquel and Heinen, I would take Raquel, but I'm not thumbing my nose at Heinen for as long as Gensel's out because I will take anyone playing with Crosby.
Yep, totally makes sense to me. Let's move on now to the Detroit Red Wings, who have suffered some bad injury news. So Tyler Bertuzzi is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a hand injury. Then not an injury, but Jakub Vrana has entered the player assistance program, so he's going to probably be out for a while. Best of luck to him. So Ben and Lewis already covered this on the last Short Shifts episode. I hope people have been enjoying our suite of episodes for the season of Keeping Karlsson. We've got us doing our mega shows on Sundays. I guess that gets released Monday morning. You got Dave Betton's Stream Scheme, which was already released today, to tell you about the schedule for next week. And then, of course, every Wednesday morning and Friday morning, you've got a Short Shifts jumping in your feed, or dropping in your feed, I should say, to talk about just the latest, because we don't know wait, right? And hopefully people didn't wait after they heard Ben and Lewis talk about this Bertuzzi injury and the new lineups, because if they waited, they probably waited too long, because Dominik Kubalik got the best opportunity out of this situation. He jumped to the first line, the top power play, and man, Kubalik has been on fire. He had 4 shots and a goal and an assist in the 4-3 overtime loss to Chicago on Friday. That brought him to 5 points in 4 games. And when I was preparing this show, the game today versus Anaheim hadn't happened yet, but I'm just looking right now. Detroit beat Anaheim today on Sunday 5-1, and Kubalik, I'm guessing there's 1 goal, 2 assists, 6 shots. Oh my God. So goes without, forget about Shane Pinto. He's nothing compared, in my opinion, right? You can tell me if you disagree, to Dominik Kubalik, who's on the top power play. He's playing with Larkin. He's what do you want? Okay. He's crushing it. He was good once. Remember when he came to Chicago and out of nowhere he was producing, and then sort of last year Chicago just buried him, and that was kind of it. He didn't get to play with Kane. He didn't get to play with anybody. But now he's getting to play with all the best boys. So I think people need to go and get Kubalik if somehow he's still out there.
Absolutely. Last week, we were so close, Elon, Steve and I, to saying we were right on the doorstep. We were like, well, Kubalik seems to be replacing Bertuzzi at the end of this game, that Bertuzzi was injured, and maybe you're interested, but we'd seen that he had 1 shot over his first 2 games combined. And we were like, okay, maybe wait and see, watch Kubalik, but don't run to him. I wish we had said run to him, because yeah, he has been gangbusters. 3 consecutive multi-point games, 13 shots over those games too. He's always been a tough guy to predict, as you mentioned, Elon. Like that first rookie season, he scored 30 goals in 68 games on a 20% shooting percentage, and I think he's probably a 10% shooter on average. And then the next season, he had a good season at a regular shooting percentage, and as you mentioned, he got buried in the last year in Chicago. So this year in Detroit, now that he's back in the top 6, I'm open to him working out. And like you said, I would take him before Pinto, just because we know Bertuzzi's out for, 3 to 5 weeks still. There's still 4 to 6. We don't know how long Norris is out. So if they're both available, I'd pause the pod. I'd go get Dom Kubalik right now, and then think about Pinto as the next choice down the ranking priority list.
Yeah, we're going to do a bunch of cold streaks at some point in this episode. So we'll give you some options of potential drops. By the way, Detroit's been running some really wild power plays recently. In today's game versus Anaheim, I'm seeing for the majority of the game, it was Perron, Larkin, Kubalik, Oscar Sundqvist, and Filip Hronek on the top power play. Though Moritz Seider assisted on a power play goal, but still, if you look at the total time on ice, Hronek had more than Seider. So maybe they shifted things around a little bit at some point. And then, so that left Lucas Raymond for power play 2. That's a bummer if you have Lucas Raymond and you're expecting him to have more power play time than Oscar Sundqvist. Sorry, I guess that's not the case currently. And I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, considering the Red Wings are on a bit of a roll. They just beat Anaheim 5-4. They did lose to Chicago, I think, like I said. So that's probably not very good. But either way, that's the current situation. And Moritz Seider nice that he got that assist today because that was his first point of the season. This is a guy who everyone was falling over themselves to draft this year because of how well he did last year and all of his peripheral contributions. He had 5 blocks today also in this game. He's still like getting the most time on ice for the team. So I don't know. It's a tough situation. He's not on the top power play for now. He probably will get back. I think Ben and Lewis were saying they expected any time that can change. I tend to agree. So I don't know. It's a bummer if you drafted him super high. I feel like you're probably wishing you just drafted Rasmus Dahlin, who you could have gotten so much later, and he's not like the biggest star in the world. But I don't think I would be like panicking too much if I have Dahlin, especially if it's a multi-category league. I'm curious to know what you think.
It's really unfortunate that Seider. Elon, I think you just said if you have Dahlin in a multi-category.
Well, that was a mistake. I meant Seider. By the way, okay, normally Keeping Karlsson is a super smooth show, except life circumstances are going to make it that we're probably not going to do as many tight edits as normal. So bear with us if you hear a few more mistakes that haven't been cleaned up in post. Yes, Brian, I meant, yes, Moritz Seider. I'd be bummed, but I still would not drop him. I maybe buy low.
Well, yeah. Sorry, you wouldn't drop him or you wouldn't buy low?
Sorry, I wouldn't drop him and I'd maybe buy low.
Yeah, I think the idea of a buy low is at least worth exploring here for Moritz Seider. There's a couple caveats. Of course, the chief one is that power play situation you mentioned where Detroit, they're not even quite splitting their top units. There is a 1 and 2 where Larkin and Perron are together on one right now and Seider and Raymond are on the other. And it seems to be like a 60-40, best case 55-45 split. Like they know their preferred unit is the Larkin unit. And of course, there's no Bertuzzi or Vrana for now, so we have to wait until either one is back before figuring out if anything changes when they are. Also, by the way, a sidebar, this makes Filip Hronek valuable. Coming into today's game, he had 3 points, including 2 power play points in, I don't know if I'm counting tonight's numbers, but in 4 games. So that was a really good start to the season for Hronek.
Yeah, another power play assist today.
There you go. A couple hits and a couple shots a night also for Hronek. So he's someone who should not be available in any format. Actually, I think I would be very happy to roster Filip Hronek this year, which is not something we've been able to say on any consistent basis in the past. Anyway, that's one caveat for Seider. The other is that he's actually it seems like he's seeing a smaller role at 5-on-5 compared to last year. He's down 2 minutes a night, though that may change. If Friday he played 26 minutes. Tonight he was back down to 21. But
I guess they have Ben Sherratt now. I wonder if Sherratt's eating into his time.
Well, they're a pair.
Oh, okay. Well, so I don't know then.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. Maybe they saw him fade towards the end of last year. Maybe they have a fuller blue line, and they don't need to lean on him as much. But aside from those 2 things, everything else looks good for Seider. I mean, can he repeat his 50-point pace in a split power play situation at best, where Seider's apart from his team's arguably 2 best power play weapons? I don't know. I don't think so, because last year Seider notched 21 power play points to help him get to 50 points. I got to imagine that number shrinks at least a little in his present situation. So if you're going to buy low, I wouldn't unreservedly buy low. I'd be careful that you're not doing the same thing that the person who drafted Seider in your league probably did, which is jump a little higher than they should have for Seider. So keep that in mind, but you might want to go kick tires, see what's going on. Because if he ever does get on the top power play, then Seider, I would consider him easily a 50+ point player.
Yeah, he's so good. But I guess Detroit, I don't know, they're doing well. So I'm not going to argue with them and say they're doing something wrong. They're 3-0-2. They haven't lost in regulation yet. So good for them. By the way, I'll just mention Andrew Kopp, someone who was getting drafted in some leagues, total snoozer. I think another pointless game today, even though Detroit scored 5. I'm sure no one listening needs to know that. I don't even, Brian, yes or no question. Should people now be thinking of grabbing Andrew Kopp, or are we forgetting about him?
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Exactly. I don't know. There's got to be I'm going to talk to you about some players at the end that have hardly any points that you're going to be like, yes, go get them right away. Seider was one of them before today, but yeah, not Andrew Kopp. So he was good before. He had a couple good years in Winnipeg and on the Rangers. He was in a really good spot and produced last year. But anyway, Brian, next up, we're going to go to the team that beat Detroit a couple days ago, the Chicago Blackhawks, talk about some injuries and situations there. So we'll get to that in just a sec. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. I'll make an edit point. All right, we are back. And Brian, we're talking about injuries here and some other things as we go, as we do on Keeping Karlsson. And speaking of Detroit's loss to Chicago, the Hawks started that game with Petr Mrazek in net, who hasn't been that good, or at least he wasn't in that game, right? He led in 3 goals on 18 shots, and then Mrazek left the game late in the second with a groin injury. Then Alex Stalock came in and shut the door for the rest of the way, stopped 10, and the Hawks came back for the win. So that must have been an exciting game. Today, Alex Stalock got the game versus Seattle. Did not go as well for him. He led in 4 goals on 34 shots, but you know what? That was enough to win again. Look at Chicago. All of a sudden, not the complete worst team. Like teams like Vancouver are making a case that maybe they're worse than Chicago, which is not something that I was expecting going into this year. But yeah, Chicago's now 3-2, believe it or not, after this win over Seattle, who was playing their backup goalie in Martin Jones, who, as bad as Grubauer has been, I think Jones is probably even worse. So that's not a great situation. Joey Decord time, I think, is what they've got to do, depending on how serious this Grubauer injury is. But anyway, what are we talking about? Chicago. Yeah. So I don't know. Some leagues you need a goalie, right? So is Alex Stalock someone that people should be going to get? Like they've brought up this prospect Arvid Soderblom, who is now going to back up Stalock, and it could, in Montreal, for example, last year there was Jake Allen and Montembeault, but then whenever Allen would be injured, like Caden Primo would come in and get the games over Montembeault. It's not like just like Montembeault became the starter. So is that the situation in Chicago now? Where we'll find out soon. So this is all just total speculation. But is this the kind of situation where you're right now thinking, if I need volume, I'm just going to go ahead and get Stalock, who's actually been pretty decent? Or is it like, it's probably 50-50 anyways, and it's Chicago, so don't even bother?
I wouldn't even bother unless you're really trying to reach your minimum starts and you don't have any other options. Alex Stalock is not someone who interests me. We've seen him play well for a game or two at a time, but honestly, whether he's going to do well or not, you could flip a coin each night, and it's probably weighted against Stalock being successful, especially on this Chicago team. I'm really not sure, Elon, there are any or many goalies in the league I'd want if they were backstopping this Chicago Blackhawks team, let alone Alex Stalock, which is why, even if he falters, I'm not interested in picking up Arvid Soderblom either. I think this would be like a pretty sad situation to toss him into. It would remind me of the early Marc-Andre Fleury days when Pittsburgh had absolutely nothing except Fleury, and he was just shelled every night in a tragic way.
Yeah, we'll see. Hey, Chicago so far doing okay. They're not beating the toughest teams, but they also had that good. Remember, Stalock had that great game against Vegas. He stopped 36 of 37 in a 1-0 loss.
I'm not going to put it past any goaltender to have the occasional great game.
Fair enough.
Stalock has a pretty solid career track record of not being good.
Yeah. Okay. So watch list Stalock, but
yeah, watch him. If you want volume or a start, you could always look. I actually added him in one league for a start today, and I'm glad he got the win. I haven't actually double checked that he earned me positive points, but that's the risk you're going to run, that he's going to blow up your numbers if you do decide to put him in your lineup.
Okay, so speaking of Chicago, we had a fun debate on our Discord yesterday whether Shrubby should trade Chris Kreider for Patrick Kane. So Patrick Kane, brutal start to the year going into today. Only 1 assist in 4 games. He's getting absolutely lapped by third liner Sam Lafferty, who going into today was leading the Blackhawks with 5 points in 4 games, 2 goals, 3 assists. I guess I could give you updated numbers now. So let's see here. Patrick Kane, 2 assists. Okay, that's nice. Sam Lafferty, no points. So Kane inching his way to passing Lafferty on the team's scoring lead. Kreider, by the way, only 1 assist in his last 3 games after starting the season with an assist versus Tampa, then a couple goals versus Minnesota. My advice was to stick with Kreider. You were kind of like going back and forth. Curious if you've landed on an answer now, if you're still kind of like, but like, Chris Kreider doesn't have that many shots, but like Patrick Kane, he used to be so good. Oh, but Chicago is such a scary situation.
Well, it was very much a Fiddler on the Roof moment. On one hand, on the other hand, on the other hand. I was going back and forth. I was not being terribly helpful as I thought out loud. And the initial way I saw it, and I think the way I'm still going to look at it, is that Chris Kreider had an amazing season last year, like way beyond expectations. And the way that I'm looking at it is that Chris Kreider had an amazing season last year, way beyond expectations, and had a 78-point pace. Patrick Kane last season had a season at expectations and had a 96-point pace. Now, I know faces have left and the Chicago team is not the same as it was when Kane did that, but they still weren't very good when Kane put those numbers up in the first place. So even if Chris Kreider can beat the odds, 80-point season again, you're already accounting for a pretty big tumble from Patrick Kane for them to equalize. So all that said, though, everyone keeps reminding me how bad the Chicago team is. But today, Patrick Kane assisted on goals on the power play by Tyler Johnson and Max Domi.
But does it count if they were against Martin Jones?
Yeah, well, barely, right? And he only took 2 shots, which is kind of like concerning. But Patrick Kane is taking 2.5 shots a night on average now. It's been a long time, like almost a decade since he's averaged fewer than 3.5 shots a night. And this is like, we need to see what we want to see from him. He has no goals on 13 shots either. Usually based on his career numbers, he should have 1. I don't know. I think I posted on Twitter because I was really stumped. We have about 150 responses. Chris Kreider has a 54% to 46% lead over Patrick Kane. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm trying so hard, Elon, I've been thinking about this for days. I think I'd go for it with Patrick Kane. I really do.
He might get traded at some point, and then all of a sudden be a star. Those sometimes players get traded.
I saw today that apparently the agent for Patrick Kane is waiting until a lot later in the season because last year Jack Eichel got traded to Vegas, right? And like sort of picked that destination, cleared it. And then Vegas didn't make the playoffs, and Patrick Kane doesn't want the same thing to happen to him.
I mean, okay, you're going from Chicago, just a chance to make the playoffs is pretty nice. But yeah, I guess you want to pick because I guess he has a no trade clause that he'd have to waive. That's the situation.
Yeah, he's in like full control here.
All right, cool. Well, we'll see what happens. So anyways, that conversation was happening. Then Jacabs, another patron, jumped into that convo on our Discord and asked about Patrick Kane versus Timo Meier. So Timo Meier, someone drafted even higher than Kane and Kreider in a lot of leagues. In our couple, Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League drafts, Meier was getting drafted in like the top couple of rounds because of all of his shots and hits and just his multi-category contributions. Meier has really stunk to start the season. Only 2 assists in 7 games going into this game today versus Philly. Let's see here. We're in the second period. It's 0-0 with San Jose and Philly. So obviously Meier doesn't have, he has 2 shots. Obviously no points. Scoreless game. Okay, so what are we doing here now? Like San Jose, similar to Chicago, not looking that great. Like I could easily be asking you this question also about Tomas Hertl, who's really letting us down to start the year. Erik Karlsson got a couple points in the last game, so that was nice. But yeah, Timo Meier versus Patrick Kane. 2 struggling guys that we expect to be good. Kane got those 2 assists today, though they were against Martin Jones. I don't know. Does that change anything for you? Right. So far, Meier hasn't been able to score against Felix Sandstrom, the goalie that is playing for Philadelphia right now. So what do you think about this comparison?
I think I would take Timo Meier here, and I don't know if that makes me a hypocrite or not. I would take Meier over Kreider, and I would take Kane over Meier. I mean, Kreider is in the safest situation, right? We know he's on a good team, and there seems to be some kind of magic around the Rangers, which, you could follow your gut to that magic. Kane and Timo Meier are on bad teams, having bad years so far with very little supporting casts. But I think I'd still put Kreider at the bottom. I'm going to stick with our preseason expectations. For Timo Meier on our patron cast, we had a patron cast, by the way. What was it, on Thursday? If you're a patron of the show, not only do you get Discord access, not only do you get to be eligible to manage a team in the Cupful, the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, kkupfl.com, but you also get one bonus episode a month where Elon and I answer every single question that people have asked us. And one of them was what's going on with Timo Meier. So I cited a couple reasons on that patron cast, which you can still get if you sign up now, by the way, to not consider Timo Meier's struggles to be like an individual thing, not a 5-alarm type panic situation. The first reason was that San Jose hasn't been scoring, which continues to be true going into tonight. The Sharks have just 12 goals in 7 games. And partly connected to that is the second reason that San Jose's power play has been trash. They have succeeded on just 2 of 24 power play opportunities. So 1 every 12 is not a success. They should be scoring a goal on, say, 2 or 3 out of every 12 opportunities. Now, these are also kind of reflective of the team as a whole. Like the Sharks do kind of stink, but they're not going to shoot an ugly 6.5% all season long. And with Meier on the ice at 5-on-5, the Sharks are shooting just 2.5%. For context, New Jersey and Winnipeg are the only other teams as a team shooting below 8.5% total. So the Sharks are in bad shape right now. This is worse than they deserve. So there's some regression and in turn goals that are likely to come for San Jose at some point. Meier has, going into tonight, 29 shots in 7 games. That's promising, as are most of his other numbers. One interesting thing I noticed is that Meier's shot attempts rates remain the same, but his shot rates are down. And I'm actually wondering if teams are wise to what he does and are really keying in on him and blocking his shots. So that's something that we can keep an eye on as we head through the season. But I think Meier doesn't make a bad buy low target at all right now. If you have the nerve to do it, if you can deal someone you picked a few rounds later. Like I was looking at our Cupful ADP. Elon, did I mention kkupfl.com? I did.
Can I ask you something about that?
What?
I have a business question to ask you.
Yeah,
we're running a business here, right? This podcast, we're
kind of.
we do it for fun, but also we get a little something for you. You always are mentioning kkupfl.com. Like you really want people to go to that site. I actually don't really like because we also have the Patreon, right? Like, and I feel like shouldn't that be the site that we're telling people? Like, we don't get anything.
Well, we mentioned that the KK.
You love saying kkupfl.com.
I mean, it's not. It's a little less chilly because we're offering resources for free for everybody to go access. And if you like them and feel like that's worth supporting, you can come over to our Patreon.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, okay. I feel like people are going to get jealous. They're going to go see all the great stuff, all the fun league happening, and then it's like, yeah, can I play? No, the season started.
Well, there's a
sign up for the wait list.
Yeah, there's a yellow banner at the top. It's very easy to follow through to our Patreon from kcouple.com. But what I was saying, looking at the ADP from this year's Couple drafts, I wonder, like people draft a little bit later than Timo Meier, Kevin Fiala, Elias Lindholm, and Chris Kreider, neither of whom are really setting the world on fire. So that makes it difficult. But even if they are, like, even if they're doing better, if they do better before Meier does better, I would definitely try and make something like that happen to acquire Timo Meier.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the hard thing to advise is more to like say that trade someone who's actually doing really well for Timo Meier that got drafted later. Like, for example, let's say let me look at the NHL's, like, let's say Matt Zuccarello, 10 points in 5 games. I'm assuming you would trade him for Timo Meier. Maybe that's 2. But I mean, it would probably be kind of sad in the short term. Okay, how about like a Jason Robertson who has 7 points in 5 games? He was getting drafted like a round later. Would you trade him for Timo Meier? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like we gotta like give someone that's actually good to offer to trade.
Yeah, you're right. So I'm working on bringing up the ADPs again. Like Robertson, I don't think so. I think he was drafted around later because he has been
a contract.
Yeah, he wasn't he was without a contract. Zuccarello, that's an interesting one. Like I could be. We're going to talk about him a little later on the show. I think I could be. I mean, I don't know if I have the nerve to do it. Right? It's one thing to say it. It's another to actually pull the trigger. I'm just seeing Timo Meier was drafted on average 20th overall. So I'm going to look at the guys drafted like 35th and below. You've got Gaudreau, DeBrincat. I would trade either of those guys for Timo Meier.
Wow. Andrei Gaudreau, 7 points.
Elon?
Johnny Gaudreau has 7 points. You would trade Svechnikov? Okay, wait. Gaudreau has 7 points in 7 games. That's without Patrick Laine. And Svechnikov is like one of the hottest guys in the league right now. You would trade Svechnikov for Timo Meier? I wouldn't. I wouldn't have that.
I would consider it. And I have some reasons for Svechnikov also later in the show. Yeah.
Let's do it now. Why not? So Andrei Svechnikov, 8 points in 5 games to start the season for the Carolina Hurricanes. Even though he's not been on the top line, he gets to play with Nate Chass. He's making Nate Chass a thing again. And also Kakaniemi, who, okay, so you would think like, okay, he's got his work a little bit cut out for him compared to if he was playing with Aho and Teravainen. But no, he had 1 goal in the first game. Then he had 2 goals in a couple games later, then 3 goals against Edmonton, nothing against Calgary, broke the streak. How did he have 0 shots in that game versus Calgary? He had 7 and 6 shots the previous games. I guess he just took a day off in this game versus Calgary on Saturday. But yeah, I'm not going to be too worried about that. But yeah, you have concerns about what Svechnikov is doing so far?
Yeah, well, so one thing that would make me not want to deal him is because for Timo Meier, if he doesn't get the points I want, he's going to give me the shots. But Svechnikov already gets the shot, so I try and I would try and be trading a lower shooting player. But for Svechnikov, like he's getting turns with the top unit. He has 3 power play points in those turns, but there's been some mixing and matching on the power play. I don't think he's really on that top unit. And Svechnikov has scored 6 goals on 18 shots. So maybe I am tempted to say, okay, this guy's scoring on too many, like he's having the season everyone has dreamed of, but I don't know that it's really for real. 3 power play points, given the deployment he's gotten so far on the power play, doesn't seem like something he's going to be able to keep up, nor is he going to keep up scoring on 33% of his shots. So maybe I do sell high on Svechnikov for someone who's likelier to be on the top power play all season long, and in turn, likelier to surpass 80 points. And I think Timo Meier ticks both those boxes.
Wow. Okay. I could get behind maybe seeing what you can get for Svechnikov right now, but I don't know. I mean, I'm a little more nervous with the Sharks than you, but this is classic me, right? I'm sure you're going to end up being right, and like Kane's going to turn it around, and Meyer's going to turn it around, and I'm going to be like trying to scrub my message history to not make it look like I told people to not go for these guys at the value
How
that
about
maybe. Yeah.
Vladimir Tarasenko
For
or Timo
Meyer.
Meyer? Yeah.
Oh man, it's tough. I like
Yeah.
Tarasenko. I don't
All
know.
right.
I just
Well,
to me,
you glossed over DeBrincat, which means I think you agree with me.
I guess so. I guess with DeBrincat, it's tricky because he's not like on the top power play, whatever. But he takes so many shots. He's so good. And Ottawa kind of has 2 power plays. Tarasenko started the season with 6 points in 3 games. I mean, we could just go off forever.
Here's. I'll throw one more.
I would hold Tarasenko.
I'm just naming everybody. Landeskog.
Okay.
Trade Landeskog for Timo Meyer. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, sure it does, because Landeskog's out for 12 weeks.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe someone's really confident they're going to make the playoffs. They're like, okay, fine, I'll take Landeskog and be really happy with him when he comes back and not be stuck with an overpay on Timo
You're joking,
Meyer.
Right? This is not actual advice we're getting.
We're all in different leagues, aren't we?
Okay, if I don't think that's a trade that you can make, but hey, who knows? Brian's been in some
Elon,
crazy
you and
games
I
over
are
the
actually going to talk trade, you and me, later in this episode. I'm going to try and make a trade with you for someone on your team in a league we're in together. So,
Okay.
So we'll actually be able to go beyond assuming what the dynamic will be.
All right. So, okay. Speaking of Gabriel Landeskog, yes, we got an update. The dude is going to be out 12 weeks after he underwent arthroscopic knee surgery on Monday. So good news for people who have Arturi Lehkonen on their teams. He's very likely going to hold this. Well, right now he's been on line 1 with, McKinnon and Rantanen, but also power play 1. And I'd imagine he was the guy who was going to get bumped from that top power play or prime candidate, but now he's got like 3 months to hold that power play spot unless he really blows it. Of course, Brian, I guess we're not going to talk about McKinnon and Rantanen. They're awesome. Instead, let's talk about the Avs leading scorer, Valerie Nichushkin. Should we just do every single player now? I'm going to be like, would you trade Nichushkin for Timo Meyer? Because Nichushkin scored versus Vegas in their last game to bring him to 6 goals and 5 assists in 6 games. What is going on? Like 5 of those points, by the way, have come on the power play. That's why I'm very confident he's going to be holding that top power play spot. Seems like he's a key part there. He's also been taking a ton of shots on goal. Nichushkin has 21 shots now after 6 shots on Saturday. That's average of 3.5 shots per game. Like just 2 years ago, Nichushkin was nothing. And then last year he emerged as someone like definitely worth a fantasy roster spot, even more than that, like a good, solid guy to have on your team. He ended the season with a 69-point pace. Do you think that was maybe just the tip of the iceberg? And now we're like witnessing Nichushkin entering like superstar territory, or is this like the prime time to get Timo Meyer? I don't want to say Timo Meyer again after this one, but like to get someone really huge in return, cash out on everything he's been doing.
I'm going to hold on to Val Nichushkin. I think I'm really excited with what I'm seeing. All those years in Dallas where he was lost in the desert. Dallas isn't the desert, but you know what I mean. Like he was in no man's land, not getting the deployment that we felt he deserved based on the glimmers we'd seen. And now Nichushkin is leading the league in points right now. 1 more point than the aforementioned Sidney Crosby. Nichushkin has points in all 6 of his games, including 4 multi-point outings. Tack on an average of 3.5 shots per game. And Nichushkin is basically jumping into the draft territory that Timo Meyer was in this year. Right? Nichushkin, of course, has scored 6 times on 21 shots, so shooting 29% successfully. That's more than double his usual number. One of the reasons he's that high is because, believe it or not, Val Nichushkin has taken 4 power play shots. Guess how many power play goals he has? 4. He's scored on every single one of his power play shots. So I don't know why they just don't let him give it to him. He'll score. That's how it works, right? But Nichushkin's 5-on-5 production hasn't changed. And that's actually something that's impressive this compared to last year, given that Nichushkin's playing with a couple guys new to the top 6 in Rodriguez and Newhook. So if Nichushkin can get 55, 60 points there, and I think he can, especially when Landeskog is back, that's going to improve his line mates one way or the other, right? That's awesome. And now that Nichushkin is on power play 1, probably to stay, right? It's going to come down to him or Lehkonen. If he can pick up 20 to 25 power play points from there, we're in point per game territory. And I think that's a decent baseline for what to expect. I think you could even expect 90 points from him this year if everything goes well. He's really good. I like him a lot. He's probably going to get drafted in the first 2 rounds next year.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're really all in. So great. So I guess if there's some people who maybe, because in fantasy, I think there's someone who probably drafted Nichushkin is so excited and maybe is thinking, okay, now, just like what I asked you, is it time to cash in, try to trade him for someone who has a higher draft stock. So maybe now is your chance to go and, trade someone for Nichushkin now before the manager realizes what kind of amazing asset he has in him. Okay, but let's also talk about another guy on the Avs who's been doing really good lately, and that's Bowen Byram. Picked up an assist versus Vegas to bring him to 4 points in his last 3 games. He's got 5 points in 6 games on the season. He's been playing huge minutes on the top pairing with Makar with Devon Taves out. Taves is just day to day, so I don't know. But Byram is someone who we've known had a huge pedigree for a while. And we're kind of just waiting for him to get the opportunity and to be healthy. And it looks like he's got both right now. We got a tweet from Dylan asking, I'm looking to sell high on Byram right now. Would Werenski be a good target? Or do you think I could aim a little higher? It's a standard points league. So I guess we could talk about Werenski in a sec and compare the two. But are you believing in what we're seeing from Bowen Byram? Because on one hand, it's like, we're not supposed to see defensemen get so many points if they're not on the top power play. That's usually not how it works. But on Colorado, I guess things are different there. Devon Taves was like a 70-point guy, right? So maybe Bowen Byram can do the same.
That would be really nice if Bowen Byram did that. I'm not sure that he's going to right now. Like he has, remember that year Morgan Riley had 70 points and like a crazy shooting percentage. Bo Byram is actually looking like he's doing. Oh, actually, I want to start this part over. Sorry. Just give me a sec.
Maybe for the rest of this one.
Yeah.
Let's just get out of it.
I would. Yeah.
You're like helping people make trades while trying to do a show with me.
Well, no, I was looking for advice for my trade. Which I should say instead of typing, I don't have a Spurgeon for Cairo type deal to make on the side there. So I'll have to look for that because Forsberg for Werenski straight up I'm not into. I mean, it's actually decent. Anyway, Bowen Byram. Byram looks good. Of course, there's always health concerns. 50 points is seeming like an easy target for him, which is good. Like he's on a team that scores a lot. What can you say? So long as he can stay in the lineup, I think he's solid. Of course, he scored 2 times on 9 shots, which isn't always going to happen. But even without that, I still think he can do. He can get a 50-point pace if he's able to. Last year, actually, I'm curious to see what kind of a shooter Byram is. He shot 10% from the blue line, which is a rare thing to do. And I'd love to see him add to the sample size this year. So we have a sense of whether he's going to be your average D shooter at like 5 to 7%, or if he's got something a little extra in the tank that most defensemen in the league don't have.
Okay. And like I said in that tweet, he was asking about Byram versus Zach Werenski. Werenski off to a much slower start, only 1 goal and 1 assist in 6 games, though Columbus did play today, I'm seeing, against the Rangers, and they won 5-1. Wow, good for them. Who's in? Okay, Halak was in net. All right, that makes a little bit more sense. Werenski scored a goal. Look at that on 4 shots. So, but still, that only brings him to less than half point per game compared to Bowen Byram, who's almost at a point per game. Would you make that swap, Byram for Werenski, if you could?
Yeah, easy. I love that idea. The problem for Werenski going into this game is that Columbus is getting fewer power play opportunities than just about any other team in the league. And of the 14 power play opportunities they'd gotten over the first 6 games, they had scored on 0 of them. So yeah, I would definitely be happy to buy low on Werenski. Columbus isn't getting on the power play when they're not scoring. Perfect, because they're going to get on the power play. They're going to score. Werenski's going to be in on it. So I will happily take Werenski over Byram. I'm going to flip one at you, Elon, based on Mo Seider, who we talked to before. Who would you prefer between Bo Byram and Moritz Seider?
Yeah, I guess I'd go Seider. Maybe it's the kind of thing where we're missing out on this Byram breakout. It's happening and we're just not buying into it until it's too late. But yeah, give me Seider, who's like done it for a full season before and was just so amazing. And Byram. Also, don't forget that right now Devon Taves has been injured, and so Byram's been playing on the top pairing. So we'll see what happens when Taves comes back. So, okay, I think we're on the same page here. I'm seeing you nod. Let's go to our next injury over in Winnipeg. Nikolai Ehlers is on the IR. We don't really know more than that as far as I could find. Like, so he's going to miss a week, maybe. I don't know. So hopefully he's back soon. Not great for the Jets. They've lost their last 2 games now to Toronto and Vegas, to be fair. Maybe they would have lost those games even if they had Nikolai Ehlers. In his absence, Mason Appleton, remember him? Okay. So he's jumped on the top line to play with Connor and Scheifele. And then Blake Wheeler took Ehlers' spot on the top power play. They kept that second line together of Wheeler, Dubois, and Perfetti. That hasn't changed. Let's start with Blake Wheeler here. He was dropped, Brian, in your couple division after a slow start to the season. You spent 21 of your 100 fab dollars to acquire him. Today, he assisted on, to acquire him. He assisted on a Pierre-Luc Dubois goal along with Perfetti yesterday, bringing him to 0 goals and 3 assists in 5 games. Brian, do you think Wheeler still has it in him for another 75-point pace season? Like, I expect John dropped him because he wasn't happy that his power play 1 spot had been taken from him and given to Ehlers, and I'd imagine Ehlers gets it back when he returns. So what does that mean for a full season of Blake Wheeler? Like, do you think you've got a season-long hold here, or is this just someone you want to grab for now while Ehlers is out and then you'll see?
Well, I asked you that question before I decided on how much fab I was going to put down on Blake Wheeler last night. And you thought he could be a season-long hold. So I said, yeah, I could see that too. And I upped my fab bid from $6. I'm already down to 71 out of my 100. I upped it to $21, all down the drain. Nobody else bid in my division on Blake Wheeler, even for free. No one wanted Blake Wheeler. After half the division, this Micah Cupful team bid on Alexis Lafreniere last week, and he went for $15. So I don't know if I'm missing something or if these other 13 people are missing something. Maybe one thing they saw that they didn't like about Blake Wheeler is he's down about 90 seconds a night versus last year at 5-on-5. But I also want to give the general caveat that 5, even 10 games in, the time on ice is can really fluctuate, right? Maybe a player's injured for a bit, or maybe there's scratch, or maybe there's an unusual amount of special teams time one way or the other for the team, which can screw with all the numbers. So don't get too hung up on any time on ice trends you think you're seeing right now. And if you really think you're seeing them and they matter a lot to you, do some digging to see what happened. But yeah, the other downside for Blake Wheeler is that the top power play spot he's had for 8 years is now at best in jeopardy and at worst straight up gone. So I think that's reason to be a little bit worried about Wheeler. But on the plus side, Wheeler's underlying numbers are reasonably steady. He's no goals on 12 shots yet. So if you give him 1, he's on a 65-point pace, and that's with no power play points. So yeah, I'll take a chance on him. I'm also going to be on snoozer watch with him in case he's a bust. But I think I'm hoping best case for Wheeler, 60, 65 points without the top power play. But I really like his 5-on-5 situation, which is one reason I was going for him. I love the way Pierre-Luc Dubois is looking this year, and I think that bodes really well for Wheeler and Perfetti, because Dubois just keeps looking better and better, and if he can pull them along with him, wouldn't that be lovely?
Yeah, hey, Perfetti, after a slow start to the year, now has points in 3 straight games. So Cole Perfetti is probably available in free agency in a lot of leagues, and he might be somebody you want to jump on. And yeah, in your shallower leagues, if Wheeler's out there, at least while Ehlers is out, take him when he's back on that top power play, right? But okay, let's do one more injury before jumping to some outjuries and hot streaks and cold streaks and all that over in Florida. So I think Ben and Lewis already discussed this on short shifts, but Aaron Ekblad out long term. So that really stinks for them, of course. They've been running a 5-forward power play. At least that's what they did in the 3-2 loss to Tampa on Friday. They played the Islanders today. Let's see what happened there. Okay, so the Islanders versus Florida ended with Florida winning 3-2. And once again, now Brandon Montour got back and played on the top power play. So there you go. It was Montour, Kachuk, Reinhart, Bennett, and wait, am I saying enough guys? Barkov, Bennett, Reinhart, Kachuk, and Montour. Okay, yeah, that adds up to 5. Sorry, everyone. I'm not on very much sleep right now. But yeah, so I guess that's the situation. Big for Brandon Montour, right? Who it's been Gustav Forsling who's been getting a lot of points for the team so far this year. But I guess, and I think actually Ben has had this exact same conversation of who do you want between Forsling and Montour. I think either way, you probably kind of want both of them, just with the way the season has started and defense being so hard to find sometimes, especially ones that get you points. Because Forsling had points in 4 straight games going into today where he didn't get anything. And actually, no points for Montour either. Actually, let me check. Did Matthew Kachuk didn't get a point? Oh no, the first game of the year.
The streak is over.
He did take 5 shots. So that's the situation. And it was on Florida. I don't know, maybe for a second we could have talked about Patrick Hornqvist on PP1, but obviously that's changed now with Montour back because he missed a little bit of time. So there you go. I don't have a question on Florida. Want to say anything about the Ekblad injury? It sucks from Ekblad, right? Like this has happened to him lots of times already. It's getting to a point where I think next year in drafts, people are really going to be fading him, and he might end up being the value pick of the year if he actually does play a whole, kind of like a Chris Letang used to be, right? Or you just fall in drafts even though he's good, just because you're so afraid of all the time he's going to miss.
Yeah, last year he missed like 20 games. The year before he missed over 30. The year before he missed, actually only a few. So this is a recent trend. This is the 3rd season in a row we've seen a seemingly pretty serious injury to Ekblad. And I agree, Elon, he's getting a reputation as someone who gets hurt a lot, which might let him fall a round or two, but realistically, I don't think anyone is going to let him fall that much, but that'll be for next year's ADPs to talk about. It's bad news for him. It's good news for Montour. And I guess Gustav Forsling is taking a lot of shots. I wonder if he'd be taking as many if Ekblad was still in the lineup. So take a look at that Florida blue line to see if Montour or Forsling are available and helpful to your team.
Yeah, by the way, I was going to mention Carter Verhaeghe. I feel like you and Steve Laidlaw talked about him on that show last week, which was a great show, by the way. Thanks again, Steve, for coming on and crushing it. But yeah, you were talking about how, oh, don't worry about Verhaeghe. He's still playing with Barkov. He'll be fine. And then like the next game, Verhaeghe scored a couple goals. So you were probably feeling really good about yourselves. And I remember you tweeted being like, see, you should have listened to us about Verhaeghe. We waited till, and then since then he's once again gone pointless in his next like handful of games. So is this going to be the same thing again, where now you're going to say, "Don't worry, he'll be fine." Then he'll score 2 goals and then go quiet again, or like how long should these Verhaeghe managers be holding on, hoping for the keeping Karlsson bump?
I'm going to be honest, I'm a little more worried today than I was last time, but it is strangely encouraging to see that at even strength, would you believe he is the only one who's scored a goal while he's on the ice. He hasn't been, if no one else is scoring when Verhaeghe's on the ice, no one, I don't know what I'm saying here. You heard what I'm saying. He is the exclusive goal scorer, 2 goals on the ice so far this year for Verhaeghe. He's scored both of them. So he hasn't had an opportunity to assist on anyone's either. So I wonder if things just need to turn. Luck needs to turn. The Panthers are shooting 4.5% with Verhaeghe on the ice. And yes, their expected goals numbers are significantly worse than they were last year when Verhaeghe on the ice. But I'm just going to chalk this up to some early season shenanigans, and I'm hopeful that the whole line bounces back, including Carter Verhaeghe. And
maybe now I'm thinking that I'm not really doing this right in terms of like, because I guess the major story here is that Alex Barkov hasn't scored a goal.
He hasn't scored a goal. No goals, 4 assists in 6 games. Like, and he's only taken 2.5 shots a game too. So I feel like there's some adjustment that Paul Maurice is making in Florida that's taken these guys some time to adjust to and figure out at 5-on-5. And it hasn't taken yet. I hope it does. I really hope it does. Sometimes a new coach comes in and screws things up. I'm hopeful that that's not what's going to happen here with Barkov and Verhaeghe and
Sam Reinhart.
Yeah,
Sam Reinhart only has 1 assist in 6 games. This flew over my head. I was only thinking about Carter Verhaeghe for some reason, who's probably in free agency around the world. But in like shallower leagues, people are probably, I don't know. I guess you're not dropping Barkov. At least he's getting some points. But like Sam Reinhart, also very concerning. But I got to imagine this is going to turn around. This must be a good opportunity to get these guys. Like, come on, we're talking top line, top power play. Like superstars from last year and from recent history. Like Sam Reinhart feels like someone that people should be knocking on doors trying to acquire, right?
Yeah, again, these guys are shooting under 5% at 5-on-5 when they should be shooting closer to 9 or 10%. And they're not being as threatening as they were last season. So that's one of the reasons for the drop in shooting percentage. And that's disheartening, but it shouldn't be this bad, even with that drop in expected goals rates for the line. So expect some kind of bounce back. But my only worry is that whatever Paul Maurice is doing in Florida is going to put some kind of ceiling on what these guys can do compared to what we've seen them do the last couple of years.
Oh man, Paul Maurice. I don't know. Now I'm also seeing Adam M is saying in the chat, and I just looked it up to confirm that he's been affecting Radko Gudas's hits. Gudas isn't hitting as much anymore. What's happening?
All you had to do is walk into Florida and say, guys, just do what you were doing last year. I'm going to watch the playoff tapes. I'm going to come back to you with a plan. Maybe that's what they're already doing. I don't know, but it's
Huberdeau probably helped.
But defensively not. I don't know. I guess we'll see. You're right. There's a lot of personnel shifts, but Matthew Tkachuk, I think, has blinded us to what everyone else is doing in Florida. He's doing well. Rudolph Balzer's doing just fine. But that top line, I would be happy to try and buy low on any one of them, though.
Yeah, I think I agree. And hey, Florida won today, which is good for them. But also, like, you don't want to see a team win with a bad situation, because then it just means that the coach isn't going to change things around, right? So we'll have to wait a little while for these like Florida top liners to start going again. All right, Brian, so this has been fun. We've covered a bunch of injuries and some other stuff. We've still got out streaks, hot streaks, cold streaks. Why don't we take a stop here, end part 1 of the show, let people take a break, maybe go and listen to the Daily or whatever, if I don't get your news fix. And then this wasn't a paid promotion, by the way. I don't know why I just said that, but anyways.
I don't know why either. They're probably not even on our network. You need to bleep that.
Let me just say this, though. I think we're going to have a lot of good advice in part 2. So I think I will recommend passing on the daily for now and going right to part 2 and checking out all of the players we think are both on cold streaks that we have to figure out whether or not it's for real or not. I guess kind of like these guys in Florida. And then also maybe some more interesting guys that are getting points. We want to know if they're going to keep going. So we're going to get to all that in part 2 of this mega episode. Hope you've been enjoying it so far. See you there.
See you there.
All right. Yes. Welcome, everybody, to the second part of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey podcast for today, October 23rd. It's a Sunday, and we are discussing all of the excitement from the last week of fantasy hockey action and regular hockey. Of course, I'm your host, Neil Dabrowski. I'm here with Brian Com, and we have covered a bunch of injuries, and now we're going to get to happier news here. So let's dive right into it, Brian, and talk about a couple of injuries that haven't happened yet. Like soon to be injuries, players that are going to be back soon, starting with Brad Marchand over on Boston. He's been practicing with the Bruins. He's been practicing with the Bruins. He's going to obviously get right to the, top line and top power play. I'd imagine with Bergeron and DeBrusk. It's been Pavel Zacha playing with Bergeron and DeBrusk. So probably people who've been streaming in Zacha, it's going to probably time to say goodbye. Like, thank you for your service. He's done kind of okay. I don't think they're going to be breaking up the Krejci Hall Pasternak line. Yeah, I don't know what there is to say here. Like Brad Marchand, someone I was worried about because Fluto Shinzawa concerned me when I interview with him, talking about that hip surgery and how it's like pretty serious and a surgery similar to the one that Tuukka Rask had. So we'll see if Marchand is the same as before, but he's like a beast, right? Like he probably will be super fine, and everyone who got him later in their drafts is going to be so excited. So I don't know what there is to say here, but just like get hype for Brad Marchand coming up. And Boston's already been so good. That's the scary thing. Like, so this team, a lot of people were maybe saying that this, they're getting older. Like it's not going to work out for them this year. McAvoy's injured, Marchand's injured, but I don't know. The band's going to be back together pretty soon. Marchand's going to join, by the way, superstar David Pasternak, 10 points in 6 games. Very exciting to see Pasternak getting back to being this like 100-point guy that he was before those 2 previous, quote unquote down years where he's only in the 80s. And then also I'll throw out another player. Let's just drool over the Bruins because I don't really have a question for you. But like David Krejci, here's the question: how much are we buying into David Krejci's 7 points in 6 games to start the season? He had 2 assists versus Minnesota, including one on the OT power play game-winning goal from Taylor Hall. So yeah, all these guys on the top. We've got Ben and Luz have talked about Jake DeBrusk and how amazing he's been. So I just feel like this Boston top 6 is just, you want everyone. They're all amazing, and it's going to be just good times forever, unless you give me a reason to be a little bit concerned.
There are a lot of good times to be had. Like forever, of course, is a big promise. But David Pasternak, I believe in him forever this season. He has 5 or more shots in each of the 6 games he's played. He's hit 8 shots twice. That's nuts. And Pasternak has 4 goals in 6 games. And for anybody who's done that so far, we'd be like, okay, yeah, 4 goals in 6 games. That can't last. That's a 55 goal pace. We don't really believe in it. But I believe in what David Pasternak's doing because he's shooting 11% because he's taking so many shots on goal. And that's actually the low end of his career shooting percentage numbers. And he has no power play goals yet either. I love everything about this for David Pasternak. And I think his hat is officially in the ring for the race to the Rocket Richard trophy this season. I think he's a front runner right now with the volume he's putting on net. And the raw talent, it's going to be pretty hard to stop him. And one of those reasons is because he has David Krejci by his side, who's doing well. Krejci has been involved in every single goal scored while he's on the ice at 5-on-5. He's himself has scored twice on 10 shots. So both of these numbers are unsustainable, but it could still be a great year for David Krejci if he gets to feed Pasternak all year long, which I think he will. I think that's why he's back in Boston. The thing to watch with Krejci is we'll see once Marchand is back whether he, Hall, or Jake DeBrusk get to be the 4th forward on the top power play, because Krejci has been successful on the power play so far this year. 3 power play points in 6 games. That's floating Krejci's numbers right now. So losing top power play production is going to bring Krejci's numbers back down to earth. But I still expect full season fantasy relevance on a great second line, quote unquote second line, with David Pasternak, who again, 5 or more shots every night. Gimme.
Okay, yeah, I guess K Townie's pointing out in the chat here that the Bruins have been going 5 forwards on the power play on and off. So maybe Krejci can stay for a little while, but then McAvoy will come back. And then obviously McAvoy is going to be quarterbacking it. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. And yeah, here's an interesting situation in Boston. The one, I guess, negative that I could even think of is Jeremy Swayman has been kind of bad. Well, actually really bad. He had 3 goals against versus Arizona. Then he sat for a bit. Then he had 6 goals against versus Ottawa. Now he's sat again. Like Allmark has played 5 games and has been amazing. Swayman's played 2. I think we may be in a situation where Allmark has emerged, at least for now, as the starting goalie on the team, with Swayman, the Yaroslav Halak to Allmark's Sjostjorkin, right? Like Allmark's been amazing in 5 games. He has 4 wins, a 929 save percentage. By the way, no losses. So I guess one of those games, I'd imagine Swayman got pulled. I don't know, but like, yeah, it's just Swayman's a snoozer, I think, right? Like it's time to tell people to drop Jeremy Swayman if you have him, unless it's like a keeper, like whatever dynasty and you're thinking of the future. But for this year, at least in the short term, I just don't see why they'll just not keep running with Allmark, who's been so good.
And a lot of people were big on Swayman, like taking the job this year, right? That's how he was drafted this season.
You know what this reminds me of? This is like
what?
Last year with Cal Peterson and Jonathan Quick.
Yeah, that's a really great comparison. Swayman was drafted 146th on average in the cupful this season. Allmark was drafted on average 230th. So it's a huge gap, and it looks like the wrong guy is taking the lead here. Elon, I really love that comparison. I don't think you could do much better than that. Swayman's been god-awful. There's no way around it. His expected Fenwick save percentage is 937. His actual Fenwick save percentage, 881. Yikes. Whereas Linus Allmark isn't doing anything spectacular, but he's playing, well, close enough to his expected number. He's still below it. And actually the Bruins are giving him, for what it's worth, these are small sample sizes, but he's seeing really, really great protection while he's on the ice, more so than Swayman. Maybe Boston thought they could leave Swayman alone a bit more and do their thing. When Allmark's in the net, they know they need to tighten up. Well, now they need to tighten up for both of them. But this is a great point, Elon. If anybody is resting on the laurels of what they thought Jeremy Swayman was going to do this season, reevaluate, because right now he is, I don't even know he's 1B. He's number 2. I think we're going to see the pendulum shift as always through the season, but right now it is decidedly leaning towards Linus Allmark.
Yeah, Andy S here in the chat is saying, I think Swayman gets the next game. Allmark was shaky. So like obviously Swayman's going to get some starts, and like how these things go when it's not like a clear number one like Sjostjorkin and Halak is like if Swayman has a good next game and Allmark has one bad game, next thing you know, we could be having a conversation on the podcast. We go, oh, things have changed. Oh my God. So we're saying what's happened right now. You could probably safely drop Swayman, but yeah, be ready to grab him for a spot start maybe the next time he plays. And then if he has a good game, maybe we could go from there. But for now, yeah, so far it's very clear what's been going on. The other outjury that's coming soon is Patrick Laine, who got injured in the first game of the season, but he's already been skating, and apparently he's going to be back in early February for these games overseas. I didn't even know that we were still doing that, but apparently there's two more games happening overseas. Was it in Finland? Anyway, I don't know.
Did you say early February?
Sorry, did I say February?
You said early February.
What's the next month? We're in October.
The
so
next
November.
month is November.
Yeah, so soon. Okay, Laine's going to be back soon. So that means that should hopefully be good for Zach Werenski, by the way, Brian, who we talked about before as someone who was struggling a little bit, or at least, the underlying numbers suggest that he should be doing better. Another thing that will help Werenski do better is to have Laine back on the top power play, I'd assume. That'll also hopefully be good for Gaudreau. Like, obviously, it's good for everyone, right? He's Patrick Laine. The only person who'll be bad for is, I guess, Gustav Nyquist, who maybe, if you want to stream him in for 1 or 2 more games, he's in a good spot playing with Jenner and Gaudreau. But like Zaka, don't expect that to last much longer. And I'm excited as someone who drafted Laine and is 0-2 in the cupful now. I definitely would like to have him back ASAP. Okay, I'll just keep going.
Sorry.
Are you like in the chat or just you have nothing to say?
No, I have nothing to say.
All right. But with that, Brian, let's move on from, or I guess I could bring up. Also, one more name I'll just throw out there, because we have patron Norm, who is related to our good friend Nick Blankenberg. So we got, well, I guess Norm is the good friend. Nick Blankenberg, I've never personally met. I've never met Norm either, but I feel like I have because we chat so much on the Discord. But let's mention this guy Blankenberg, who was really quiet today for Columbus. So obviously he's not a sure thing to even be in the lineup every day, but when he is there, he had some huge games. Like if you're in a Bangers league, Blankenberg had like 5 hits and 4 shots versus Vancouver, had a huge game versus Nashville, a goal, an assist, 2 shots, 2 hits, 2 blocks. He had like 2 shots, 3 hits, 2 blocks versus Pittsburgh. So anyway, this is a guy, we're not going to mention Nick Blankenberg every show, but he's someone that I'm kind of interested in. If you need a stream and you need a defenseman, make sure that he's actually in the lineup. Maybe like wait for the practice lines to come through.
Well,
but
here's the thing, Elon. I think he's going to be in the lineup the rest of the way. Like that's the vibe I'm getting. And if you were sort of waiting to add your 3rd or 4th defenseman via free agency, Blankenberg is a really good candidate at the moment, except for the fact he left today's game injured, but I like him. He couldn't get into the lineup. He had a bad camp, but after his first game, Brad Larson was like, well, I can't take him out now. It's really rare you see Blankenberg go, or anyone go from healthy scratch to playing 20 minutes a night on the top pair. But there you go. Blankenberg's done it. I don't think there's looking back. And while he's there, you can look for peripherals and occasional points because he's playing with Werenski and he's going to be on the ice with a healthy Line eventually with Gaudreau and Jenner. I think he's a nice, sort of like a throwback to like Alec Martinez at one point, or Alex Goligoski, one of these 35, hopefully, point players, maybe a little less production from Blankenberg than those guys, but steady peripheral contributions. I like him as a depth defenseman.
Yeah, well, hey, I guess now that I'm getting this update, I didn't realize this. He was involved in an awkward collision earlier in the game, appears to have injured his left arm, Aaron Portzline said. He attempted to play through the injury, but ultimately left the game. So hopefully it's not serious. Maybe now's a good opportunity if you have an extra ad at the end of the week, if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, at some point, stash him in your IR. And then when he comes back, you can, it's almost like a free tryout. So interesting stuff. And yeah, good luck to Blankenberg, I guess. I hope he's okay. All right, let's talk about a guy, not an ouchery, but someone who got called up, kind of like an ouchery, right? He wasn't on the team, then he was. Nick Robertson on Toronto. Okay, he had 2 goals and 4 shots versus Dallas in his first game, playing on that line with Tavares and Nylander. So a very good spot. Then in the next game versus Winnipeg, nothing. So this is what's tricky. And that's why we need to do this show to help people, because it's like some people probably streamed in Nick Robertson after seeing that big game and thought, oh, I got it. I got a big hit. And then he does absolutely nothing the next game. So how long of a leash do you give someone, a high pedigree guy who was drafted in the first round, playing on a good line? I wouldn't drop him now. I don't think you're going to say to drop him now, but like how many pointless, like with Verhaeghe, right? Like how many pointless games in a row? Let's just decide it now so that we don't have to like keep on talking about it later and have people asking like how many pointless games would you need to see from Robertson before you say, okay, I guess I'm going to move on to the next guy.
A couple more. I think I would let him. He's been pointless once. I'll let him be pointless again. And then I'll start getting concerned. But I really like his underlying numbers so far. Like the shots he's taken are strong and dangerous. And the shots he's taking are also plentiful given the time on ice that he's seeing. So he's doing really well in the early goings. Also, Toronto, hasn't scored a ton with it. He hasn't been on the ice much, but he hasn't been on the ice for many goals, which might be a reason for them to move him aside. So I'd give him a little more time. I'm trying to avoid, I added him just as he was being called up. And I'm trying to avoid the situation like I had last year with Jesse Puljujarvi, where I'm like, this guy's really good. He just needs the opportunity. And then he couldn't consistently get the opportunity. And when he did, he couldn't always make the most of it. So Robertson could be a drop for some of you out there. I just have really intense FOMO. And Puljujarvi was my FOMO guy last year, and it didn't end well for me. And Robertson is my FOMO guy this year. And I'm trying not to make the same mistake again. So I'll keep you posted when I'm ready to drop him. But my answer in the cupful is I'm going to give him another game.
All right. And who knows, maybe this is going to be a big hit, right? You also don't want to do the opposite. And like, I remember last year, was it you or someone, like you were saying that you had Lucas Raymond and then you dropped him, like, like people were into him and then he had a couple bad games and then you dropped him, or maybe you had the option to add him and then you didn't. And then obviously then he went off and had a really good rookie season. Does that strike a chord with you? Does that ring a bell?
Yes, it does.
So yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to have had Robertson, drop him because he has one bad game, and then all of a sudden he turns out to have a great season. So he's definitely someone that we'll have to watch and see. Also, someone in Toronto doing really well right now is Ilya Samsonov. He's 4-0, 938 save percentage. I feel like if we were redrafting leagues right now, he'd go as like a top 10 goalie. I'd imagine. I guess you could have that small concern that, Matt Murray might come back at some point and challenge. Come on. We'll see. Maybe Matt Murray comes back at some point for a game or two. But like at this point, Samsonov, he was such a high pedigree guy. He really, like, Toronto got a steal here. I don't know. Maybe Washington wasn't a good fit. Like Darcy Kemper's not doing that amazingly this year. I don't know. I'm very excited about Samsonov. I wish I drafted him. So dumb. This is another one of these things. It's like I had the idea, I think. Like, it might be a smart idea to draft Samsonov because Murray's probably gonna get injured. But everyone's talking about Matt Murray and how if he was on, Lewis made his like wish list on short shifts. Like, I'm wishing for a Matt Murray healthy season. It's like, okay, I could see it. Maybe a new situation. I don't know. The air is different. The water's different. 4-hour drive away. But no, Samsonov is amazing. And I don't think he's someone you're going to be dropping all season long. And I don't think you should sell high. Like, I think that this is a guy you want to ride. What do you think?
I also wouldn't sell high on Samsonov, but I don't think it's over, Elon. But again, this is another case where the guy we didn't expect, Samsonov, is getting to have a real good run here. He was drafted on average 50 spots after Matt Murray in the cupful. And one thing we should keep in mind, Elon, before saying, well, it's over, Matt Murray might play a game or two, but it's Samsonov's net. This has easily been the best showing of Samsonov's career. I skimmed his career's games log, and from my quick glance, I might have missed something, but from the glance I did take, only in January 2020 had Ilya Samsonov ever put up 4 great starts in a row. And aside from that, you were lucky to even see 2 great starts in a row. So I guess what this means to me is if you have limited IR spots and you're holding on to Matt Murray, I think this means you can just let him go and you don't need to have dibs on him until you see Samsonov starting to falter again, which is possible because he has a really long track record. Well, his only track record is essentially of being inconsistent. It's not that long. I mean, we see that maybe Samsonov is showing he still has a shot at reaching the upside he came to North America with. And in that case, the contest could be over by the time Matt Murray's healthy. So let's wait and see. But yeah, I feel terrible for not having Samsonov on my roster. It seems easy. It seemed like we all should have done it.
Yeah. Well, I guess you can't all do it in one league unless you have one of those box pools where you just all check off the players that you want. Okay. So let's go to some cold streaks now. I guess we've got about a half an hour left in the show. So I want to rhyme off a bunch of cold streaks and a bunch of hot streaks. And Brian, you could give the typical sustainable or fleeting here. This is the old thing we do on Keeping Karlsson. Like, is this something that you think is going to continue, or is there some underlying numbers to suggest that this won't last? Either the coldness will end or the hotness will end. So let's start with some cold ones though. Thatcher Demko. So we're talking about Ilya Samsonov, who I think would go top 10. I wonder how far Demko would fall if we were to redo drafts right now, because Vancouver is bad. They are 0-4-2. They just lost to Buffalo 5-1. Demko has no wins, of course. He has an .858 save percentage. Is it like the kind of thing where just this team is bad and Demko's not going to be able to, get out of this, and he's going to end up being like a rough hold, kind of like Bobrovsky in his first year in Florida? Or is this the kind of situation like, oh man, this is your chance to get like a stud? We put him like tier 2 in Schmore goalies board? Yuck. Okay. But I don't know. He's definitely probably going to be able to be acquired from some other team that's probably really frustrated right now.
Yeah, definitely, probably. Thatcher Demko is available to you, and I think you should take a look. Oh, the thing with Demko is he's basically playing exactly at his expected number for save percentage at 5-on-5. The thing is that we're used to see him play like 70 basis points above that expected number the last 2 seasons, and we're also used to seeing Demko get better protection than he has so far this year. Like, it's terrible in Vancouver right now, Elon. I feel like I'm sure every Canucks fan feels this is deja vu. Last year, do you remember how on fire in a bad way Vancouver was to begin the season?
And Pettersson wasn't doing anything. Now this year, Pettersson's doing well to start the year, but they still stink.
And it's like you're in this black hole that you can't get out of. And for the time last year, Demko had 6 wins in his first 17 outings and a .904 save percentage, which is, just a little bit below respectable. But then the rest of the way, Demko had a .919 and won 27 of his remaining 47 appearances. So ups and downs along the way, of course. But I just wonder if we're in the black hole phase of the Vancouver season. If we, the way we expect Fiala to wait 3 months to start producing, should we expect the same from Vancouver now? Like, they've been terrible. They're like, I don't even know.
Here, can I throw another couple cold streaks at you just so you can talk about it all together? Well, I just wanted to bring up also, sorry, I'll just do it just to move things along. But JT Miller, pointless in 3 games. People are wondering about him, I'm sure. Andrei Kuzmenko, someone everyone's super excited about. He's pointless in 3. So yeah, just when you're talking about how terrible Vancouver is, I'm curious to know in general, how worried should we be about all these guys?
So on Demko, I would buy low and assume that Vancouver is going to crawl out of this at some point. It might take some time. But Vancouver is not the worst team in the league this year, especially in like defensive protection. They're bottom 3rd, but they're not the worst. So I'd give it a go with Demko because he can do well, even against really difficult workloads. So I'm okay with that. JT Miller, I'm actually not holding my breath for. It seems ugly with the quotes coming out. Like JT Miller was like, I've been on the ice for 8 goals against. This can't keep happening. And everyone's like, yeah, JT, it can't keep happening. Like you answered your own question.
Well, Demko has a bad shooting percentage or save percentage. He's probably throwing shade at Demko.
Yeah, well, maybe. But Miller has himself to blame too for not scoring. His own expected goals numbers are basically in line with what we'd expect, like a below average offensive defenseman Like, it's bad. He's barely doing anything. So he doesn't seem motivated out there either. He seems mad. I don't know. This seems like a moody guy. I would try and get out from under. Like, he could absolutely bounce back, but it's going to be a really stressful few weeks until he does, which I think he's too good to be held down this season. He'll get going. Things will go all right. But you don't have much leverage if you have Miller right now. And Kuzmenko, you mentioned, like what line's he on? I don't know, Elon. The lines in Vancouver are so shaken up. I don't even know that they're shaken up anymore. They've been changed so many times. I don't actually have an expectation.
I think he's been with Pettersson. That's this frustrating thing if you have Kuzmenko, because Pettersson's having a decent season, at least offensively. And Kuzmenko's been with Pettersson. He's been on the top power play, but just, not producing. He's taking some shots. I have Kuzmenko in one of my leagues. I'm trying to decide, am I holding on to this guy? Or like, I've got lots of exciting free agents.
Well, now he's definitely not with anyone, right? Amon and Garland are his line mates. Although Bruce Boudreau said after Pettersson, Amon or Hughes one night, Amon was their best player. So maybe this is good for, it's bad. Bo Horvat, I just saw a quote scroll past my screen on Twitter where he was like, we've been here before. We've been in a rebuild forever. I just don't feel like we're ever going to win again. Like, he said this. It's ugly. It's real. So sorry again, Canucks fans. We feel you. We hear you. And we don't really hear you because you're not really screaming out loud. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see. I was just looking at the previous game lines, but on game day tweets, I'm seeing, So Miller, Horvat, Mikheyev. Had Coles and Pedersen, Hoglander.
What are these lines?
No Besser at practice, so maybe Besser takes Amon's spot. I don't know. Who's Amon? Do we know who this is?
Does anyone know Amon's first name?
But okay, that's probably Besser's spot.
Nils.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe I will drop Kuzmenko. I still have one more ad drop this week. There's some free agents. I'm going to ask you about some people. Maybe
I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance everyone on Vancouver gets going. I think it's going to be a painful go. I feel like they're not at rock bottom yet.
Okay, so another guy who was drafted probably even higher, definitely higher than Demko and Kuzmenko, maybe even higher than Miller in leagues, is Roman Josi, who's done nothing. 1 assist in 7 games, pointless in 5 now. So that's a tough one, right? To swallow if you drafted him as like your top defenseman in like the second round of your league. Josi does this, by the way, maybe not to this extent, but he had like an amazing year. Then he went down. Then last year was amazing again. And so maybe it made sense that we were going to expect a down year. But what's going on there? And like actually in net in Nashville also, UC Saros, not as bad as Demko, but he had that one good game versus San Jose overseas in Prague. And then since then he's led in 4-4 and then 3-3 goals against in his next few games. So Saros, like Demko, really not living up to, I feel like at this point, maybe people are like, oh, I should just wait and drafted Ilya Samsonov, but obviously you can't go back in time. Or I should have drafted Linus Ullmark. That's why predicting goalies is so hard. But what do you think about Josi and Saros so far?
So I will say just on a team level, like Philip Forsberg has 4 points in 7 games. He's only scored twice this season, which isn't great. Matt Duchene also not doing that great. Also 4 points in 7 games. Josi, as you mentioned, Nashville's only scored 16 times in 7 games played. And they're also this is almost like the San Jose situation. They're 2 for 29 on the power play, which, Elon, I wonder if Nashville and San Jose starting the season abroad and out of rhythm and then coming back and trying to get in rhythm, I wonder if it's affected them all a little bit. Maybe this is a theory that's worth floating since they're both struggling in similar ways to score goals and keep up with other teams. Josi's minutes are down. I don't know, again, whether we should read into that with such a small sample size. They're down about 1.5 minutes at 5-on-5. So I just watched to make sure that's not going to continue. I don't see why it would, but keep an eye on it. The one thing I do like about Josi is he has 31 shots in 7 games. So he's trying. All right. He's doing the work. I'm not going to get down. I'm not going to say this is going to be one of Josi's down years right now. I think I'm just going to hold on and wait for Nashville to start scoring. And then I'll panic if Josi isn't getting in on it or if Nashville continues to not score. But I think there's some regression coming that's going to help everybody on the team collect some more points. And UC Saros he's playing below his expected numbers at 5-on-5, which is rare for him. He's also not getting any goal support, as I mentioned. And Nashville leads the league in power play opportunities given to their opponent, which obviously stresses Saros and his workload. So I would, what can you do about these guys? They're 2 studs. You drafted them early. All you can do is wait and see. I wouldn't give them away for pennies on the dollar either. I would grit through it. Let's just put it this way. I think Josi and Saros are going to be doing better before Demko, Miller, and Kuzmenko are.
Fair enough. Yeah, I feel like Roman Josi is probably the guy I'm most excited to try to buy right now. Like, I think if you're the type of person that likes to like throw out trade offers, go send some trade offers for Roman Josi. He's taking more shots than, like you said, more shots than he ever has in his career. So, and even if he does have a down year for Roman Josi is like, I don't know what, 55-point defenseman, which is still good. And if that's the floor and the ceiling is like 70 or 90, like he's done in those good years, yeah, he's definitely someone I would go after. We have a question in the chat here from Adam. Thoughts on Forsberg in Nashville? So what's he up to? I mean, with like Nashville barely scoring, it's probably a good thing. Like Forsberg's not doing so bad. 4 points in 7 games. He got an assist in that last game versus Philly. Scored a goal against LA. I don't know. Brian, are you worried about Philip Forsberg?
No, not especially. I think we're just on track for the season that we kind of expected he'd have, and not the one we wished and dreamed he'd have, which would have been a repeat of last season's 100-point pace. I mean, he's taking 3 shots a night. That's good. He's scoring on 10% of them. That's good. I think the thing that's not going well for him is, like I said, the same thing that's going not well for everyone in Nashville, is that goals, like pucks, are not going in the net. His line is shooting less than 7%, 6.5% while he's on the ice. And I think it's just going to be a matter of time before that changes and Forsberg's points come back so he can be at least that 70-point player, hopefully a little more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think Joel put it best here in the chat. Forsberg will do better than he's done so far, but will do significantly worse than last season, which is basically what you said, Brian. So another defenseman that's been bumming us out is Evan Bouchard. Only 1 assist in 5 games. He hasn't gotten the top power play like people thought maybe he would. It's been Tyson Barrie. I think you said, we talked about this on the Patreon cast. You said the power play is doing well. So there's no reason why Barrie should get bumped. So how long should people hold Evan Bouchard? Especially if you're in a 1-year league. Who's the other person I was saying, like maybe you keep him in keeper leagues, but otherwise maybe it's time to move on. But I'll try to find out who that was. But yeah, I just am a little bit concerned that Evan Bouchard is not someone you need to hold all year.
All right, Elon. Well, you have Evan Bouchard on one of your teams in the league we're in together.
Mm-hmm.
Would you accept? I have a trade to propose to you for Evan Bouchard.
Don't forget, this is a keeper league, right? And my team stinks. So
yeah.
I might be thinking not only about this year, but thinking about the future. But okay, let's hear it.
Okay, well, that sort of shows
your
hand.
And I also have a co-manager who so I can't make it. I can't.
No, you're not going to accept it. We both have co-managers that we need to.
Let's hear it.
Both named John. We both have brothers named Joel and co-managers named John. How about Kevin Hayes for Evan Bouchard?
Come on.
All right.
Get out of here.
Okay. Jeff Skinner?
No, he's not even doing well.
No, he's not. But he might do better. I thought Kevin Hayes.
These are bad offers. Is this how you play? Is this what the kind of offers you throw at people?
Okay, these are actually like, we had a lot of early draft picks this year, and I don't have anyone else that's like an appropriate.
Okay, so
I thought Kevin Hayes would be decent. I thought you might be in, but as a keeper, for sure. Like, I see why you would keep Bouchard. I always forget that this league.
There's a lot of good centers also in free agency. Like I got Ryan Strome out of free agency. I got Dylan Strome out of free agency.
I mean, your definition of good is.
Wait, well, okay. Well, let's talk about Kevin Hayes then. Do you think, like, obviously you're trying to trade him, so you don't think he's going to keep up his, 8 points in 6 games? Like, Philly's been great. I've already said, I think on a recent Patreon cast, so I'm super excited about Travis Konechny, like, finally being a superstar. And I think this could be his year. Yeah, right now he's being centered by Hayes until Couturier comes back. Then I guess things get shaken up. But like, Kevin Hayes, what's his best ever season? Like, he had a 64-point pace back in 2018. So I feel like he's like a 50-point guy. Like, he's
never had the opportunity to do better.
You actually, forget about the trade negotiations.
Yeah.
Just now as the co-host of the podcast, like, what is the ceiling for Kevin Hayes that you're seeing for this year? Like, how high is he? A 70-point guy?
I don't think so. I think for as long as you are, like, as long as Couturier's out, I think Kevin Hayes could be like a 65-point player with like a bender on numbers. He could maybe go higher, but I think 65 points is probably the best case scenario. Philly's shooting at 5-on-5, 16% with Hayes on the ice. So that's why I'm not really a believer in him being able to keep up. Well, obviously the pace he's on, but even, 70, 80 points is probably a stretch for Kevin Hayes. But let me get back to the reason that I asked you if you wanted to trade Bouchard, is because I think he's a really good buy low target. Like, looking at who Bouchard is playing with, his most common forwards that he's on the ice with are McDavid, Draisaitl, Evander Kane. That's exactly what you want to see. And yet, Elon, Evan Bouchard has been on the ice for exactly 0 goals at 5-on-5, despite playing with McDavid, Draisaitl, and Evander Kane. The Oilers have 0 goals on 75 shots while Bouchard is on the ice. Do you regress that to last year's numbers? Like, give Edmonton an 8% shooting percentage with Bouchard on the ice, give him, like a 40 to 50% IPP, which is what he put up last season, which is a little high for points participation, but we'll grant it to him. That gives Edmonton 6 goals on 75 shots and Bouchard 3 points, which would put him on a 65-point pace without any power play production. So that's why I think he's a buy low. I think Edmonton will start scoring with Bouchard on the ice. And meanwhile, Bouchard is putting up 3 shots and 3 hits a game. So that's a buy low right there. Everyone should go out and target and see. And like Barry's doing well on the top power play. Give up on Bouchard getting there. That's fine. I will still take my 45 to 50 point defenseman taking 3 shots and 3 hits a game. No problem.
Okay, phew. I'm glad I passed the test. Didn't accept that trade offer. You would have just made fun of me. By the way, Connor McDavid is currently on pace to have 82 goals and 82 assists this season. So just want to put that out there for people that this is a possibility. Okay. Also Joel saying in the chat here, speaking of the Oilers, Evander Kane is about to explode. So, I mean, he's done it before. It definitely could happen. Yeah, he's like not scoring maybe at the rate people drafted him at, but he's playing with McDavid's insane, right? He's playing with McDavid. That's all you got to say. Okay. Let's go to another struggling defenseman, John Klingberg. He had 2 assists in the opening game of the season. No points in 4 games since. Anaheim played today, we discussed. They lost to Detroit. Let's see, did Klingberg do anything here? He did not. He also only played 17 minutes and 25 seconds. He had the lowest time on ice of all the D except for Nathan Beaulieu. Yuck. John Klingberg stinks, Brian. You remember you were like decide this whole thing of Klingberg versus Erik Karlsson? Yeah. Karlsson's actually scored today. So that's good for good for him.
Yeah, great.
Oh, are you gonna
sure.
Okay. No, I didn't know if you were being sarcastic voice or not.
I'm not going to decide that it's over because before Karlsson scored today, he had also done a whole lot of nothing this year. Like both these guys are struggling. Anaheim with Klingberg is 2 for 16 on the power play. I think they're still figuring things out, but Klingberg's individual numbers, I can't just blame this on the team. They aren't pretty on his own either. And nor are Erik Karlsson's.
What, Brian, this is the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Are we going to slander? Karlsson's now up to 6 points in 8 games. Bro, yeah. That's a 62-point pace.
Okay.
Let's not talk about Karlsson disappointing us. He's just fine. Don't drag him through the mud just because John Klingberg stinks.
Okay, so coming into tonight's game, he had 4 points in 7 games. Just to remind you, he's now scored 3 times on only 11 shots. So he's taken, like, this would be a career. He's on currently shooting, taking fewer than 1.5 shots a night, which is worse than he's ever done before. And that shows up in his underlying numbers. I'm not slandering the guy. We still have to give good. We're not going to be so blindly alleged to Erik Karlsson.
I just don't want to link him with a guy who's doing nothing when he's got 6 points in 8 games.
Here's what I have to say about Klingberg in Anaheim. I think there's an adjustment period. I also think Dallas Eakins might not be around much longer if he can't figure out how to make things work, especially with an embarrassing loss tonight, 5-1 to Columbus. I would give Anaheim time to work it out and to figure out what and how to do with Klingberg, and Klingberg how to do. Like, we have to grant players going to new teams a bit of an adjustment phase before we give up on them. Of course, you run the risk of missing out on the next big thing if you hang on to that guy too long. So it goes in context with the rest of the decisions you have to make and players available. But that's my current take on Klingberg. I'm not giving up on him yet, but it sure doesn't look good. But again, neither does Erik Karlsson, honestly, and he hasn't changed teams. I hope they both succeed, Elon.
Okay, just because Karlsson has a high shooting percentage, you don't have to say it doesn't look good. The results are there. That's all that matters right now.
Scoreboard.
We're not telling people to like go out and like trade for Karlsson, but we don't have to just out of nowhere say he's not doing good.
Did you mention that I picked Klingberg 2 spots?
No, I don't care about that.
I feel like you do care about it. I feel like
I just care about Erik Karlsson. I'm a big fan. I don't want to be.
I care more about Erik Karlsson than you
okay.
do.
Well, it doesn't seem like it. Okay, here's a trade then. Let me ask you. Let's say I don't want to compare Karlsson to Klingberg because that leads to us fighting. But here, Klingberg's doing nothing right now. Out of nowhere, Sean Durzi is doing pretty decent, right? Like not blowing the roof off, but he's someone who came in last year when Doughty was injured and opened up our eyes. And now at this point, 6 games into the season, Durzi has 4 points in those 6 games. He just scored in the most recent game versus Washington, where Washington beat LA 4-3. Let's say you forget about trades. Like let's say just Durzi's out there in free agency and you have Klingberg and this is your bottom defenseman. Is that a swap you make, or are you believing in Klingberg?
No, I'm not trading a top power play quarterback for a guy who's only in line to get that power play time if Drew Doughty gets injured. I mean, I've been saying all preseason that I don't get why people are into Jersey. Of course, now he's on a 55-point pace, and I have to think, well, maybe did I get something wrong?
He's also shooting a decent amount, 2 shots a game.
Yeah, no, these aren't bad numbers at all. He's doing better than I thought he would be, but he's participated on 3/4 of the goals scored while he's on the ice.
I see.
Yeah, like I don't see this as sustainable. I think a 40-point pace would be most reasonable from him, and I would definitely prefer John Klingberg to Sean Durzi.
Okay, that'll be a fun one to check in on in a little bit. I think I could see going either way, to be honest. Okay, let's do some forward. Oh, I guess I should mention it's Ron Anaheim. John Gibson had a good game, finally. So one good game versus Boston. But did he play today? He did, and he stunk. Okay. John Gibson stinks. He's like a Grubauer at this point.
Anaheim is in trouble. Like this was supposed to be a year that I think they started turning things around, and that hasn't happened.
I mean, they have now McTavish in. They'll probably want to get like Minchukov and like a couple of these other, prospects that people are excited about into the lineup. Frank Vetrano has been pretty decent. Actually, Anaheim has a good streaming schedule next week: Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So if you want to take a shot on a Ducks player, don't add them now, but like Wednesday morning, check your lineup. This is like a stream scheme thing. Like Dave probably already said this exact thing. I haven't listened yet to today's stream scheme, but if you check your lineups for if you have someone on your bench on Thursday and on Saturday, that's probably someone you want to drop for a Anaheim guy on Wednesday, and you'll get 3 games instead of 0. So hot tip there. But let's go to another cold streak. Elias Lind.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
okay.
Just like definitely them in Seattle, 2 extremely disappointing teams this season. Like if I'm looking for a team to change coaches, those are the teams I'm looking to, because I feel like the rosters should be capable of more. They haven't been so far.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't want to blame the coach. Maybe it's not the coach. Like if Dave Haxtell gets let go, he's been getting crap goaltending. Like let's be honest, and so has Dallas Eakins. And of course, if nothing changes with a new coach, and it's like, well, 2 guys lost their jobs for no reason. I just wish you could trial. Like, okay, coach, why don't you watch from the press box for a few games? We'll get another coach in there and see how he does or she does. That would be nice. Anyway, Anaheim and Seattle, I wish them much better than they've done so far. What a frustrating season.
We're like, deep into the show here, and I want to move on, but I guess I'm actually looking now at the box score for this game today, and Klingberg wasn't the top power play defenseman. Cam Fowler had 4 minutes and a half of power play time, and Klingberg only 2 minutes and 27 seconds.
Oh, that is news to me.
I think I'm ready to move on. I don't know. Okay, give it one more week with Klingberg, according to Brian. I'd swap for Durzi if I could. But okay,
I'm looking. Yeah.
Nice. Actually, okay. Speaking of Durzi, let's go to LA really quickly.
I think
Gabe Vilardi
was still the top. He was still the top power play guy.
He just played less on the power play.
Yeah, they had 4 forwards, 1 D for the minority of their power play time today. And then it looks like that, like, come on, no Zegras on the top power play. That doesn't make sense.
I don't know, Brian. Like, I guess they're trying things out. So let's see what happens the next Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Okay, I want to talk about Jersey's team. Gabe Vilardi had that insane start to the season, 4 goals and 3 assists in 5 games. Then Alex Iafallo got injured. And since it's only 2 games, I don't want to alarm anyone, but now Vilardi's gone pointless in 2 games with only 1 shot in each of those games. This is kind of like my Nick Robertson question. Like I don't think we're ready to tell people to drop Vilardi now, but I'm just curious. Like at the end of the day, he's been on the top power play in LA, which is good, but he's on the 3rd line, and now he's pointless in a couple games. So how much longer do you hold someone like this before jumping to the next shiny object, assuming he doesn't go off in one of his games next week?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great start for Gabe Vilardi, but he's fallen off. He's, for anyone who doesn't know, 23 years old, 11th overall in 2017, drafted by the Kings. Looked great in junior, but the knock on him was that he couldn't stay healthy even in junior, and that's continued into his pro career. But Vilardi had 4 goals on 13 shots to start the year. Of course, it's not sustainable. Also, something weird, actually, Elon, speaking of that Ducks power play, that something caught your eye. Something caught my eye for the Kings power play, which is that we've all sort of been talking about Vilardi on the top power play, but I saw him with less than a 50% share of power play time for a 3-game run. So I feel like he must have been taking turns, trading off with someone for a little while, because Kopitar was above that mark more often than not.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the last game, there was a stretch where it was Kopitar, Fiala, Kempe, and Vilardi. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's early in the season, so we don't have like a lot of data to go off of. And then and the Kings,
And 1 minute of ice, 30 seconds can change a whole lot. So I think where I'm at with Vilardi is, I'd consider him a high-end streamer right now. maybe like Nick Robertson-ish levels. And I might hold him a little longer because of the turns he gets on the top power play. But you asked about shiny new toys, and I'd still be actively looking for shiny new toys to exchange Velarde for. I don't think he's gone cold because Iafallo's gone. I think he's gone cold just because what he was doing at 5-on-5 was not sustainable. So he's going to have to start doing more on the power play to make up for it.
Okay, let's go to Calgary. Okay, so we've got a cold streak here in Elias Lindholm. Only 2 goals, no assists in 5 games. He's scoreless in his last 2 games. There was some weird line shakeups, and Lindholm was playing with like some weird guys, but that at least changed back for the 3-2 win over Carolina on Saturday. So he was back playing with Huberdeau and Toffoli, who, by the way, Toffoli's doing great, 5 points in 5 games. By the way, also let's throw out the other center on the team that was getting drafted a lot later than Lindholm, Nazem Kadri. He's just fine. It's kind of weird, Brian. I feel like going into the season, we were like saying Huberdeau is going to be good as one of the people changing teams. But like, Matthew Tkachuk, maybe we have to be worried about him like getting worse line mates. And then like Nazem Kadri, we have to be worried about. But like it's Tkachuk and Kadri are like the best of all the people switching teams so far. And Huberdeau, meanwhile, oh yeah, not that special, right? Only 4 assists in the 5 games, a 66-point pace. This is a guy who had almost double the point pace last season. It's early, but I know here in the chat, who was it? Joel? Someone was asking here, wanting us to talk about Huberdeau because he just traded him and he wants to feel good about it. So should we be worried about, like Huberdeau, I don't know, new contract, comfy situation? Is he not going to be able to meet those expectations that he set in Florida? And then also Elias Lindholm. Yeah, I guess that line, but somehow Toffoli still has a lot of points.
No one's really looking good in Calgary right now is the simple way to put it.
Kadri is.
Sorry, Kadri. But on that top line, it's not great. Like Lindholm has seen no goals while he's on the ice at 5-on-5 this year. None. 0. Yeah. He has no points at 5-on-5 either. Like he hasn't been on, when I say he sees no goals, it's not that he hasn't scored any. He hasn't been on the ice for a 5-on-5 goal yet. And Lindholm, while he's on the ice, his line mates' expected goals rates, they're half what they were last year. Like they are unsustainably awful. This is worse than you'd expect to see from like a 3rd or 4th line. So again, I think in Calgary, unless, you're one of these guys who's doing really well, like Rasmus Anderson and Nazem Kadri, Tyler Foley's doing all right. This is still an adjustment period. I think Lindholm's figuring out his new role without Gaudreau and Tkachuk. Like that's a huge, huge change. So I think I would just give this one time, assuming you can handle it. On the power play too, like Lindholm's also not doing great. The only power play points he has are the goals he's scored. The other 3 goals scored by Calgary on the power play with Lindholm on the ice, he hasn't pointed on, which is also kind of unexpected. I expect him to be more in the mix. So again, too early to write off a guy completely. And this is what we expected to happen. We expected to see guys struggle with new line mates.
Oh, hello? Did the stream stop?
It's a new arrangement. And again, I'm not going to read too much into the sad numbers that I'm seeing, Chuck. I'm just going to hope that they are good enough to figure with a good enough coach too, that they can figure this out. They might just need another week or 2.
I see. Yeah. Huberdeau also has ice time way down to 16 minutes and 15 seconds a game when he's normally at like 20. Brian, is there a cutoff or something on your end?
Sorry, my internet just went out and came back on.
Okay. But your recording is still good. Because I didn't hear a lot of what you said about Huberdeau. Did you mention his ice time at all by any chance?
Yeah, I did. Okay. You can get specific. I just said like across the board, everything's said, including his ice time.
Right. So I'll say. Okay.
But remember, like what I've said about ice time is that like one bench period or whatever is screws everything up.
Well, no, I'm looking at all the games. Yeah. So yeah, I just want to hone in specifically on the ice time for Huberdeau. That's to me the biggest concern. Like we're looking at like 16, 15 minutes in each game, as opposed to, in Florida where he was closing in on 20 minutes, like 19 and a half was his average time on ice last year. So definitely if Sutter doesn't like Huberdeau to be a 20-minute guy, there's no way he's going to be able to be a 118 point pace guy, even if he bounces back a little bit. So that would be definitely something I'd be concerned about. And it's not as much up to him. Well, it's up to him to earn those minutes, but maybe Calgary is a different team than Florida. And maybe they're going to want to give a lot of minutes to the, Nazem Kadri line since they're doing so well. So it's a little bit of a scary situation. By the way, the defense, Rasmus Anderson, 6 points in 5 games. He gets better every year, this guy. So I wonder if he's going to pull it off this year and finally be like a real stud out there and like compete with like the Roman Yozis of the world for total points per game.
That would be great. I like him. 3 power play points already. And for anyone who's wondering, we've already been through this. Who's going to quarterback the top power play? Everyone had reasons to think it wasn't going to be the guy, but this guy's proven he can do for it. And I didn't believe in Rasmus Anderson for like until he started showing me I should. Now I'm a lifelong believer so long as he keeps doing this.
Okay, let's end with some hot streaks here. Let's start with some goalies. Okay, Jake Ottinger. We talked about him in the summer. I think I did a show with Ben where Ben like said we wanted to play the odd or not game, and people had to vote whether they think he's going to be as good as the hype or if he's not going to meet it. And I was very much just going to, whatever. I'm not doing that well this year so far, 2 weeks into fantasy. So let me brag about what I can. I was very much in the camp of I think Ottinger is for real and he's going to be awesome this year. I didn't draft him anywhere. Ugh, oh well. I'm dumb, but he's been so good, Brian. 4 games, 4 wins, only 5 goals against total in those 4 games, 959 save percentage. If we were redrafting right now, I could see a reason to put him first overall. Like Wedgwood is the back. He's going to get all the volume. He's awesome. He's great. Okay.
So you mean top tier 1, not first overall?
Tier 1. Yeah. First overall for goalies is what I mean.
Okay. Like a tier 1 goalie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, McDavid I'll probably take still over Ottinger, depending on your league's scoring settings. But as far as goalies go, I just don't see a reason. Like, unless you could find what could you even find? I guess with goalies, it's hard with data. Like, he hasn't led enough goals to be concerned about anything. He's just stopping every single thing that comes his way pretty much. So yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, there's nothing to find. There's nothing I could do to say, well, he's overperforming because I could say if they were doing poorly at 5-on-5 and doing like otherworldly on the penalty kill, then I'd point that out and say, well, their 5-on-5 performance will be what prevails. But I'm looking at Ottinger. I'm looking at the other goalies you're about to name, Carter Hart, Jordan Binnington, Tristan Jarry, all these goalies off to huge starts. They're all doing incredibly well at 5-on-5. Of course, this is, in 180 minutes or so of ice. So we're not gonna acclaim them yet as tier 1 or 2 goalies just based on this performance so far. We have to remember their track records of being, well, everyone has a spotty one here actually, except Ottinger. So that's a reason to like him and maybe consider him a tier above the rest. But a nice comeback season for all these guys, Binnington, Jarry, and Hart.
Yeah, I was also going to bring up Allmark, who we talked about. Yeah, I did mention it, but so are there any of them that you're if you're going to be concerned about one of these goalies, the one that you think is going to fall off, is it Ottinger or is it Carter Hart, who again, so he's 4-0, 949 save percentage. Tristan Jarry, 941 save percentage, also 4-0. These are all undefeated goalies. Binnington, 3-0, 940 save percentage. St. Louis just hasn't played a lot of games yet, but he's been great in those 3 games. So yeah, at this point, of those ones we just mentioned, Ottinger, Hart, Jarry, Binnington, Allmark, who's the one you're like, or you can say none, of course. Like, is there someone here that you think is the most likely to fall off? Or is this all silly speculation and there's no reason?
I mean, it's pretty silly because I would just refer back to our tiers at the start of the season. And I would say Binnington and Jarry we had in a tier where we were demonstrating our belief in them. Carter Hart wasn't there. He was someone we were open to seeing more from, but considering I think Philly has punched above their weight so far, and maybe Carter Hart has too, I would be holding my breath. Like that's the one situation if I had to name one that I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. It would be nice to see everyone here succeed though.
Okay, then not undefeated, but another couple goalies. I think I mentioned at the start of part 1 who might have stepped up to be number 1 goalies on their team, like Eric Comrie doing really well for Buffalo in his 3 games. He's 2-1 with a 930 save percentage. Seems like he could be for real. I would rush to the wire to Adam. I think if I needed a goalie, or even if I didn't, I think he can be someone who just holds a number 1 job and puts up good numbers. And then also Mackenzie Blackwood, who at one point we really liked, and then he became really terrible. But now this year, he started the season 3-1. In his last 3 games, he's led in 2 and then 1 goals. So I think he's earned the starter's job at this point. Obviously, it's the kind of thing like we talked about with Allmark and Swayman, like one bad game from Blackwood and then a good game from Vanacek, and maybe things switch. And also, I will point out that Blackwood's wins recently have come against Anaheim, the Islanders, and San Jose. So not the most offensive of teams. We'll see how he does against like a more of a powerhouse. But yeah, Comrie and Blackwood are 2 other goalies that I think people should definitely be looking out for if they're still available in free agency, because I think they will be in a lot of leagues.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye out. I mean, Elon, Eric Comrie is someone I've been all over since preseason trying to say, like, this is a starting goalie. Craig Anderson, I don't think, is about to be able to split a workload. And Eric Comrie we had reason to believe that Eric Comrie had a real shot at being a good NHL goalie. And so far, he's proven that he's up to the task. He's looked amazing. The only thing standing in his way, really, and only kind of, is that Craig Anderson has looked even more amazing on like raw numbers and compared to his 5-on-5 expected numbers. Craig Anderson has had 2 starts. He stopped 35 of 36 shots to open the year against Ottawa. Then he stopped 29 of 30 shots against Vancouver on Saturday. Now Craig Anderson boasts a .970 save percentage. Buffalo's just getting great goaltending. I have my guess is that Comrie gets 2 out of every 3 starts going forward. That's 55 starts, which means he is definitely worth having on your roster. And Mackenzie Blackwood, let's see if he can keep doing what he's doing and if he can stay consistent. Vitek Vanacek had his first crack. He failed and then failed again. Blackwood is, it's just going to be whichever guy's the last to fall is going to be the one, like he'll be out and the next guy comes in. It's going to be like Samsonov Vanacek potentially in Washington last season between Vanacek and Blackwood. But it's exciting to see someone do well in the crease in New Jersey and give that team a chance to be the team that we hoped they would be. So yes. While Blackwood's playing well, I would absolutely go out and grab him and treat him as though he is the starter, because he will be until he falters.
Yeah, which he may not, but yeah, maybe he has a higher likelihood than some of these other guys. Rasmus Dahlin, I wanted to bring him up. We were talking about Comrie doing well. Dahlin, holy cow, 5 goals and 5 goals. 5 goals, 8 assists. 5 goals, 3 assists for 8 points in 5 games so far. He's at the top of the D leading scorers, even ahead of Fox and Makar, who have each played 1 more game. Dahlin only needed 5 games instead of 6 like Fox and Makar to get to the top of this list. So he has just been fantastic, scoring a goal every single game. I assume you're not going to say he's going to score a goal every game, but do you think was this it? Did we miss our chance now for anyone who wanted to get Dahlin? Is it now like moving forward for the next 10 years, you're going to have to draft him amongst like the top D, right there with Fox and Makar and Hedman? Or do you think maybe it's like a little bit like, he's great. We've always thought he was going to be good. He was drafted first overall for a reason, but like, this is wild. Like, I don't want to dive too deep. Obviously we'll let some more time tell us what exactly is the real Rasmus Dahlin. But now that Buffalo is a decent-ish team, Dahlin looks like he's really going to flourish.
Yeah, he was sort of in like that third-ish tier of defenseman this year. He was going in our couple drafts, basically at the same time as Darnell Nurse, and after Thomas Chabot and Brent Burns and Dougie Hamilton, Zach Werenski, and Moritz Seider. I mean, there's a lot to figure out within all that. But Dahlin's start has definitely put him on everyone's radar as being this legit fantasy threat that we always hoped he would evolve into. As you mentioned, Elon, 5 goals in 5 games on 18 shots, so shooting 28%. But 2 of those have come on the power play, which I'm okay with a bloated shooting percentage if you're scoring on the power play. Dahlin has 5 power play shots. He's shooting basically between the circles with the man advantage, and it seems to be working. He's been a participant in most goals scored while he's on the ice, which has helped him accrue the points that Dahlin has accrued. This is all to say Dahlin's variance is high, and of course it is for a 131 point pace. But if we're putting a realistic benchmark, we're looking for Dahlin to improve on the 54 point pace he had last season. And I love all the hope he's given us that he can early on. I'm on Team Dahlin beating last season. I know it seems like a silly thing to say, but I think just to contextualize what we're expecting from him, I think 60 points would be a nice year from him. And he's on obviously a really great track to do it.
Okay, so let's say you have Dahlin, you're taking a look at like a Victor Hedman who only has a paltry 5 points in 6 games versus Dahlin's 8. Are you going to try to trade Dahlin for Hedman if you can? Try to trade up here?
No, unless it's in a keeper. Sorry. A keeper. Yeah, sorry. I would trade Dahlin for Hedman. Oh, okay. Sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yeah, in a keeper league, maybe this is the moment where you trade Hedman for Dahlin and like make that swap. It might still be a year, 2 years too early, but yeah, that's where I'm at on Dahlin. I like what I'm seeing. It's good to have our hopes confirmed that this guy does have big offensive upside, and we'll keep watching over the next few weeks to see where things sort of level and balance out.
Yeah, by the way, Hedman scored 20 goals last year, and this year he has 19 shots and no goals yet. So I'd imagine you give him a couple goals and then he'd be in the same conversation as Dullies. That's why I brought him up here. Okay, then back up with Blackwood's team. Let's just mention really quickly, Dawson Mercer has gotten to the top line and top power play recently. I guess unless you want to call the Heeshear, Brat, Palat. I don't know if it's like a top line or just two top lines, but that's been one line. The other one, though, Hughes, Sharon Govich, and Dawson Mercer. And then Dawson Mercer also playing with Hughes, Brat, Heeshear, and Dougie Hamilton on PP1. And Mercer's like available in a bunch of leagues. He scored in his last game. So I think going to next week where New Jersey has a good schedule, I wanted to definitely mention him as someone that you might want to try out for the short term and see if he's a hold. And another guy on line one power play one that you may not be aware of is Sean Monahan over in Montreal, who's been recently taking turns going with Suzuki and Caulfield. And then also on the top power play with Suzuki, Caulfield in the last game, Jonathan Drouin. Oh, good for him. Okay. And Chris Weidman. So Sean Monahan used to be a star, right? We used to love him. Now he's in Montreal and he's got 4 points in 6 games and getting great deployment. So if he's out there in your free agency, he's also another person that I want to make sure people are aware of, that they might want to go after and get something out of him.
I think our buddy Davey B mentioned Sean Monahan or Dawson Mercer, maybe both on the stream scheme. Definitely Dawson Mercer that preceded this episode in your feed. So make sure to check that out for more tips. But yeah, really nice start for Shawnee Monty over there, having really, this is the greatest success he's had since at least 2019-20. And we like, listen, I don't think he's the superstar that it seemed like he would be once upon a time, but there could be something there. I still don't know how much that something can be in Montreal, but hey, line one, power play one, playing with Suzuki and Caulfield, that is a good place to produce. So I would love to see him continue to keep it up. And Elon, I like Dawson Mercer as another target over in New Jersey. I really don't have anything to add other than
fair.
What you said. Like his shot counts are like, I guess he's like quiet, but if you're looking for a streamer, I don't know, Elon, who would you prefer between Mercer and Palat? Let's say they're both available in your league. You're looking to add a couple GP for your next week. Who would you take?
Yeah, give me Mercer, I think. I'll take the guy on power play one.
Yeah, that makes sense. They both have like not great numbers on not great shot counts, but Mercer's in better shape than Palat, both on the counting numbers and in the line chart.
Mm-hmm. By the way, San Jose is up 3-0 against Philadelphia. 2 minutes to go. Still no points for Timo Meier. Oh no, but he does have 5 shots. So it's going to happen soon.
So long as he keeps taking 5 shots on net, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, James Reimer, by the way, pitching a shutout. I hope I didn't jinx it right now, but he's someone that you might want to look at because it seems like he's winning the job from Kaapo Kakkonen. But Brian, we could go on forever. I think here's a good spot to end the show. I was going to bring up a bunch of Arizona guys. I'll throw it out there, okay? Nick Ritchie, Travis Boyd, Clayton Keller. That's been, oh no, I don't think that's been the line. It's been Krause, Boyd. No, Rich. Okay, let me just even get this. I thought I wrote this down, but I didn't. But there's a top line that's actually producing over in Arizona, just like last year, where it'd be like, how are these people getting? Yeah, Krause, Keller, and Travis Boyd all have either 4 or 3 points in 5 games. And then Nick Ritchie has been on the top power play with Keller, Boyd, and then 2 defensemen, Shane Gostisbehere and a guy named JJ Moser, who has picked up 4 points in 5 games. So, you know, this Arizona team is a team where you wouldn't expect there to be goals, but last year, remember, there was that weird stretch where they were scoring like 7 goals a game for like a week or two. I don't think they're going to do that, but don't just like ignore people in free agency because they're on Arizona. I think all the names I just mentioned, Gostisbehere, Ritchie, Boyd, Moser, then of course Keller, Lawson, Krause, good streams at least. I don't know if do you see any of these guys beyond like Keller and Gostisbehere as like season long holds?
No,
or just streamers.
Yeah, like totally. Truly just streamers like the Coyotes. I was looking at their numbers and saying, how are these guys getting points? I don't know. Arizona is easily the worst team in the NHL if you're going by share of expected goals at 5-on-5 or straight up just how many expected goals they're accruing with the quality of their chances at 5-on-5. Like worse than bottom tier numbers. This is not an NHL team right now. Like I can't get into any of these other guys you mentioned outside of Gostisbehere and Keller. This is an ugly team, a really ugly team in Arizona, but that's what makes it fun to be able to see some guys succeeding. I wish them all the best, but I am not sacrificing a whole lot to get them on my fantasy team.
Yeah, if they have a good schedule, I'll take Lawson Krause. I don't know, playing with Keller on the top line. Anyway, Brian, this has been fun. We've gone through a lot of players. Hopefully people enjoyed what we were able to put together today. My first show of the season, breaking down actual NHL action. If you enjoyed the show, let us know. Tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson. You know what? If you didn't like the show, tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson. Give us your feedback. But if you liked it, we would also love a review on your podcast platform. But if you didn't like it, we don't want a review. So that's the little difference there between Twitter and your Apple Podcasts or whatever. But yeah, also subscribe to the shows. Like, we've got so much coming in our feed, all to help you be successful in fantasy. We already mentioned Stream Scheme, Short Shifts, our shows. You just could subscribe. You know how podcasts work, right? You like subscribe to a podcast and then it just downloads the episodes for you automatically. And then you don't have to worry about, oh, is there an episode today? Just, open your phone. It'll tell you. Yeah, there you go. Oh, next Keeping Karlsson. Sweet. Okay. So we would really appreciate that if you give us a subscribe, all that stuff. If you want to support the show, we have a Patreon, keepingkarlsson.com/Patreon. You could join our awesome community on Discord where we're giving each other fantasy advice. We do a show every month for the patrons, a bonus show called the Patron Cast. We just did one a couple days ago, which I think was really fun. And you could go listen to it right now and see all the interesting conversations we had about the questions the patrons had about all the players we maybe didn't talk about on this episode. But with that, Brian, let's get out of here. Let's cue that outro music. Why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters who deserve everyone's thanks for keeping future episodes of the show coming. We've got Aaron, Tyler, Andrea, Tom, Ryan, Derek, David, Rob, and of course, Patty. Thank you to our Cupful coordinator, Kevin A. Bear, and our team of co-commissions. If you're interested, getting in on the action, kkupfl.com. Also, patreon.com/Keeping Karlsson. There you go, Elon, if you want to join our Discord server and be closer to us, have more of us through your week. Thank you to you, Elon, and Shems Benamor, one of our moderators on a Discord server, for keeping the amazing stream of fantasy news rolling on Game Day Lines at GameDayTweets.com. Just go there. That'll hook you up with all the Twitter accounts. Also, thank you to our amazing team of mods, Shams, Andrea, Jeremy, Kevin, for keeping our server rolling real smooth through early days of the season. Like, this is a safe space to engage and talk hockey. If that sounds interesting, you come. And it's thanks to these wonderful people who help volunteer their time to make it so. So thank you. Follow Ben and Lewis at Short Shifts KK. Follow Dave Betton at NHL Stream Scheme. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
Great job, Brian. This has been so much fun. Looking forward to talking to you again for another mega episode next Sunday. But in the meantime, everyone, like I said, we'll have short shifts coming up throughout the week. And what should people do while they're waiting for the next Keeping Karlsson episode to drop?
Please, in your actions around hockey, engagement, and discourse, please keep doing what you can do to make sure that fantasy hockey can really be for everyone. Bye.
Okay, this was fun.
You got to go.
Got to go, definitely. But this, talk to you later. So, Brian, here's a thought. Just a thought for the, you're going to post it as 2-part episode.
Yeah.
What if you give the episodes different names? Because this one was really much the first half was injuries. And then the second half was the hot streaks and cold streaks. So then people maybe want to listen to the hot streaks and cold streaks first. Or they want to listen to the injuries. I don't know. It might be, or you can just
I'll think about it.
I don't care that much.
That,
it's an idea I just had that I don't even know if it's a good idea. But it's
okay.
Said the idea.
All right. Okay.
All right. See you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.